is going on? Welcome to another episode of Music Row Hideout, the show where we hang out with artists, musicians, and entertainers in Waylon Jennings' old basement studio. As always, I'm gathered here with co-host Ryan Poole, who I'll pass it to introduce the guests.
Well, tonight, on a very special episode of Music Row Hideout, we have Matt O'Donnell, bass player to the stars.
Something like that.
Potentially sushi enthusiast based on the shirt he's wearing.
Yep.
By the way, this is a side interesting note. I've noticed when I'm doing my intro, I got the hype music behind me at first, and I'm feeling it, but then you've got the little trail, and then it like verbs out, and it always hits at some sort of slightly comedic moment for me, and that's why I always derail my intro at that point into like...
into some other nonsense.
Nonsense.
Man, the mind is a powerful thing.
Yeah.
Like, never underestimate what the human mind can do. So you are probably now pre-programmed
100%.
to like just hit it when it comes to that point in the intro.
And just ruin it Yeah, I always
Yeah, I'm like, but because of that, I don't think he's ever finished an intro.
No.
Just go,
No, we get
this
into
is,
a
get the name,
conversation.
and then we just get it.
You could start with like, here we are.
Yeah,
And here we are.
You know, I'm interested to see how this goes for two reasons. One being, I'm about to start therapy for the first like time in my adult life on Wednesday.
Oh, nice.
And so this might be like the last will and testament of like my disorganized brain.
Or you're going to realize you don't need therapy anymore now that you've been here.
Or that too. That's entirely possible. Also, how do I say this without sounding like an asshole? People have said to me often, like, you should have a podcast. I mean, I think that's a thing now, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you know somebody that can hold a conversation, like, you should have a podcast. I have thought about it, but I've thought about making sure that the stakes are low and that the first episode would probably start with me saying, like, if you're hearing this, it worked. Like, my pilot program worked. So here we go. And that's all that you need.
You know, just throwing this out there, maybe this is your first episode.
Maybe.
Right. Yeah, we just repurpose it.
Yeah.
Send it back to you.
We'll
Change the logo on the front.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
We'll give you a copy of the audio.
Nailed it.
Yeah, just put a different theme song in the beginning, and this is your first episode and our something
I have
episode.
no idea
and
what episode we're on.
you know, it'll be like a weird
but that's
multiverse thing, and we'll split off and evolve in different ways.
That's what's cool, though. I like the fact that you don't know how many episodes you have.
Yeah, we just like come hang out and do it several times. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but that's the deal, right? Is like, I don't love as much of a person I am for detail. There's something about the idea of like maybe knowing or not knowing how many episodes you've done that makes me feel like we're not taking this too seriously. Because like
Yeah, we're
taking
gonna have a good
yourself
time.
too seriously is just like the opening the door to like you know
Yeah, I mean,
parody and satire of yourself.
if
Do
we
you feel like
didn't-
you're somebody who takes yourself too seriously, or is that something you've fought in the past?
Yeah, absolutely.
Go for like a gut question right off the bat.
No, I love it. I don't know if I take myself too seriously, but I'm way too hard on myself, which I think is some version of taking yourself too seriously.
like super self-critical.
Yeah, and so maybe my want to encourage people to not be too serious or like take themselves too seriously is some reaction to my doing it. Like using myself as a cautionary tale. like no, don't be me.
Yeah. Yeah, I think anytime you've like experienced a lot of pain in a certain area, like I know I'll try to encourage people out of like, don't feel this way or don't think about this that way, because I myself have felt that and it wasn't good.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I tend to be fairly self-critical and critical of everybody else too, but mostly me.
I mean, if you want to go there, I'll get my phone from the other room. We can start going through names, places, dates.
Calling them out.
Yep.
What's funny about your personality is you say you're self-critical, but the way you like portray yourself into the world,
like a piece of shit.
you seem like you're anti-self-critical. You come off like you would have no self-criticism.
Oh, no, I have a lot of self-criticism, especially if I watch back to these episodes, especially if I'm watching the video.
Oh, I am planning to never watch this.
Yeah.
I'll give it to everybody, but be like, you let me know how it is.
Like, I lived it, I don't need to watch
Yeah,
that.
that's right.
So I just sit there, I just stare at myself, I'm like, you're just fidgeting all the time. You just fidgety bitch. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know? And it's like things like that, I just look at it, I just can't get over them. Nobody else even notices or cares.
Also, Fidgety Bitch is a great band name.
Oh, that will be my next band.
Yeah, I keep a list in my phone of what I refer to as shitty EP titles.
Ooh.
And it's just meant for like, you know, say I make a an EP out of a bunch of loops, like something I don't care about that's just going to go on Bandcamp and be for free. Like, what would I title things like this? And one of them was, without getting too graphic, what's a good one?
Oh, without getting too graphic, all right.
A good one is I smooched your Weenus. And it's just like, that's something, I can't remember if I said that or if I overheard it being said, but I'm like, there it is, shitty EP title, and it just goes on the list. So
Man, I remember learning what Weenus meant.
I like that.
In, like junior high, and just like that was the word for like the next month.
Words like that are like masticate,
Right?
and you're like, oh man.
Yeah, that's everybody learns those words right around 4th, 5th grade.
And it's because they're written somewhere inside your science textbook. Someone just wrote it in the margins.
Oh yeah,
That's how you
forgot
learn
about that.
Yeah, that's how you learn about life, right? Is like the notes that somebody else left in a textbook for you.
Yeah, that's true. Like I probably learned about sex that way.
Absolutely. Nobody had a junior high textbook that they didn't like a life science book that they didn't automatically go and find like the genital diagrams in.
It's like turn to page 35 to learn how sex works, and then in the margin a little stick figure.
Yeah. In the opening thing where it shows everybody whose book it was, because you had to put your names in them. Then like someone was like page 35, and you're like, oh, what's on page 35? Oh, it's that stuff.
It's always the same thing.
Yeah.
Is what it is. Or it's just the word fuck. Like you're like, oh. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to censor myself.
That's one of the buttons.
Great. You need like a remote for that one. For the bleep. You gotta like get one over to yourself and just every time.
Of course, when it's just comedically after the curse word every time, it's also great. So.
That's what Petey does. Do you guys know Petey? He's like an Instagram / TikTok guy, and he just does silly videos where he's like every character in it, and they post bleep every word.
Oh,
it's always like, fuck.
Oh God.
It's like fuck. And you're like,
it's good. Have you guys ever seen The Count? Like The Count from Sesame Street video?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one too, where every time he says the word count, like they bleep it and then you just think that one's magic.
Oh man.
Well, so I'm gonna
let's
bring us back to the
get
intro.
on some sort of track.
So I mentioned bass player to the stars because I didn't really know what to say, but you play bass.
Yeah.
And you currently play for a star, Sara Evans.
Yes, that is correct.
And so Sara Evans. So we know each other through a mutual friend, Aaron Smith, who was on the podcast.
Tremendous musician, tremendous guy.
Many episodes ago. And so he plays for Sara. He plays keys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Which is amazing because he also plays drums. He's just a really talented guy. I kind of assumed that he was a keyboard player who like played drums a little, and then I found out he was actually a drummer who played keys. But I knew him as a keyboardist, and he's great at it.
Yeah, I've not heard him play drums yet. We've known each other for like a year and a half now, and I've not heard him play drums. But that's the word on the street is that he's like a really banging drummer. Yeah.
He went to school for. Yeah. So anyway,
that's wild.
So, so I didn't really know who Sara Evans was. I knew that Aaron played for somebody named Sara Evans, and then in preparation for this, I went and looked her up. I'm like, oh yeah, she's some country singer. So I looked her up, and then I realized, oh, I actually know one of her songs.
Well, she was like a big country singer.
Yeah, she is big.
I just don't listen that much country.
Exactly.
Like, oh yeah,
yeah. For being a podcast based in Waylon Jennings' old basement studio,
neither of us know much about.
We're not
country
big
music.
country people. We had a phase where we know the country people, but
that's fine. We can talk about how little I knew about country before I moved to town.
Yeah. Well, how'd you get into playing bass, and what took you to move into Nashville?
Oh, sure. I was in like the 8th grade, and my best friend growing up was a drummer. I had another friend who was in junior high who played acoustic guitar, and then he got an electric guitar. And it was like, well, we have to have a band, right? And so there just was no bass player. And so I decided that's what I was going to do.
Isn't that how everybody started bass? Like their friends were like, you got to do it.
Yeah, well, there's that. Or there's like, you're the like spare prick at the wedding, like guitar player. Like you're the ex. That's how McCartney ended up playing bass. He was playing guitar, in that version of the Beatles. And then it was just like, well, we have to have one. I think it was when Stu Sutcliffe left, like they needed somebody. And, but no, I went because I play lefty. And And
Like Paul, right?
Yeah, just like Paul. And that comes from my mom, buying me my first bass for Christmas, and like her being like, he's left-handed, and the dude at the music store didn't lead her down the path of being like, it'll be better if he doesn't. And so, $30,000 of, custom instruments later, like that's, so I did that. And I will say, like, bass is not an evolution. Evolution's not the right word. It's more of a thing of where I have always just loved music. Like, it's just it's in here, Yeah. I think my parents aren't super musical people. I shouldn't say that. My parents are the best kind of musical people. My mom grew up like playing the accordion, and my dad was in a doo-wop group. Nothing like super successful, but like, they grew up in Brooklyn, and he and his friends sang, and so they just had their group, when they would do restaurants and stuff and like those kind of gigs. But, nothing like too serious out of either of them, but they both love music. And I think that my sort of like innate understanding of it to this point has been that there's something about the respect that they have for music that made me understand that there is nothing better than music or making music. And that's sort of, I think, how I ended up in the situation of like wanting to do that. I recently showed a friend my 8th grade yearbook. The school that I went to was kindergarten through 8th grade, and then you went on to high school. So the 8th grade...
Those kindergartners are learning some fucked up shit in those books then.
Yeah. No, I think those are all workbooks. I think that's like... Into kindergarten, it's like, nope, we throw those away. We burn those. But like there's a profile for like all the 8th graders. There's like our photo in which I have frosted tips, but just in the front.
Oh, beautiful.
2000. Yeah, 99, 2000. What a great time. But anyway, I've always found it striking that in my, it's just cute and chintzy to ask an 8th grader what they want to do for the rest of their life. And it's like, what occupation do you want? And I bet most people look back and say, yeah, firefighter would have been great. Or I had a friend in junior high who wanted to be a trash guy. And it was because he could ride on the outside of the truck, which they don't do anymore. A robot has replaced that job.
Really?
I mean, yeah.
Oh, I guess
now they do
it just
scoops it up. Yeah, you don't have the two guys on either side of the truck that just get down, throw the trash in, and put it down.
That just reminded me. Well,
Did I ruin your childhood?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Not. I remember I always told people the same job that I wanted to do when I grew up. I definitely didn't, and I used to tell people stockbroker. I don't know where I got that idea from, but in my mind that was the shit. And I just wanted to be a stockbroker, and I don't know when I lost that. Probably like 7th grade or 8th grade or
Probably.
Something.
I mean, we determined before we started recording that we're all like right at the same age, and so you probably saw Wall Street on TNT like too many times, and you're like, yes.
Yeah.
Like, I'm Gordon Gekko now.
Mm-hmm.
I was a paleontologist for the longest time. Anyone?
I like it. Yeah.
Did you watch Friends?
Because you watch Jurassic Park over and over again.
Park. That makes way more sense.
When I was a kid, this is the thing you'll learn about me. I'm a tangent guy, and I'll try and remember to like get it back to where we were. But Jurassic Park is a film that, like, an entire summer, I had the VHS. I would put it on at some point in the day and watch it for hours on loop. And then whenever dinner was or whatever, I'd stop it. And then the next day, I'd start from where it was and just go around and around and around. Like, I don't know for a fact that it's the movie I've seen the most in my life, but there's a good chance
it's
it
up
is
there
just
for
that, Anyway, in this profile, I said that I wanted to be a professional musician. And honestly, except for like a brief high school flirtation with maybe doing some political science kind of thing, that has remained true this entire time of my life. It is just what I have always wanted to do.
As soon as you said political science, and probably it's like your glasses, but your like whole vibe, all of a sudden I pictured you in you could totally in a different life be like a little like think tank guy who's like pulling strings behind the
these are definitely professor glasses, like professor or like pollster, like guy like
Pollster.
Like in The West Wing, like some like weird guy that comes in, like analyze the polls and like.
Oh no, I see you definitely higher than that. Like
Yes,
I definitely see you like, advising
Really?
some politician.
I see him like door-to-door campaigning at best. I don't know.
No, because that requires talking to too many people.
Oh, true.
The best thing that happened to me today is that Ryan told me what door to come in here. Because if I show up to a building, I'm like, what fucking door do I have to go in? I am crippled with fear and anxiety. And he's like, it's the red door. And I went, yes. All right, cool.
So you mentioned you're starting therapy this week.
Yeah. It's for real.
For that door phobia.
Yeah. Anyway, so I played clarinet prior to playing the bass. And then picked up the bass, and all through high school I went to a relatively small Catholic school, and so
Where did you grow up?
Oh, Northeast Pennsylvania.
Okay, cool.
Near like somewhere in between like Scranton and Stroudsburg.
Okay, I've got some Pennsylvania questions.
Okay, great. We can get to that. Actually, well, let me finish this part.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be like deliberate about finishing my things, and then we can do whatever weird. But I took every opportunity there was to play the bass, not necessarily in front of people, because a lot of those things were, school mass or like a prayer service or things, but like anything that required like the music teacher to be playing piano for something, like I was playing bass alongside. And so just doing tons of that. And then we can probably talk about Berkeley, because that's what I did after the high school. I went to Berkeley and then ended up here. I'm sure everyone always wants to know about, has a million Berkeley questions, but give me your Pennsylvania questions before we move on to Boston questions.
Sure. So, okay. So here's the thing.
Uh-huh.
My wife and I lived in San Diego for 30 years.
I like San Diego.
It's dope.
Yeah.
And then we moved here. And here is also dope.
Yep.
I dig it. But that got us thinking, there's other dope places. Mm-hmm. And so we've thought maybe in like 2 or 3 years, we might pick another state.
Uh-huh.
And unless something awesome happens here, right? And we're
Well, you're not a stockbroker, so you can't afford the real estate here, so you're probably going to need to go in 2
That
or 3
is
years.
definitely a motivator, which was a motivator of leaving San Diego.
Yeah.
When we got here and everything doubled. Mm-hmm. Pennsylvania is one that we were looking at the other day, which is why it's so fresh in my mind.
Sure.
Perfect. It seems cool. It seems like they got a lot of good stuff. The taxes aren't too insane.
No.
The
6% sales tax?
yeah,
Yep.
low sales. They have income tax though, which is
Yeah,
bummer.
they do.
But
Yeah.
it's not crazy.
No.
Not like California. Mm-mm. And the trees, like the nature, is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, but here's the things that I hate about Nashville that I don't want to carry to wherever I go next.
I'm excited.
One, the summers here are hell on earth.
Yes.
I would rather every summer here. I'm like, I'm moving back to San Diego.
Don't worry. Check that off your list. Just cross that off, because
Not a problem.
the summers aren't that bad. You're going to top out, climate change be damned. You're going to top out in the high 80s, low 90s.
Perfect. And the humidity's not insane?
Not nearly as bad humidity. Which is funny because my wife is from Louisiana, which is worse on humidity than here is.
I mean, that's the worst state in the U.S. ranked every year.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, like, when we go down there in the summers, I'm like, okay, I'm never going to wear pants on that, no matter. And so, that makes here feel like a midpoint between the two. Okay, so cross off the
one.
the summers
I got 3.
part. Okay, yeah.
The second one, the bugs here. Now, I grew up in San Diego. There's no bugs. I didn't know we had no bugs. But
Fair.
the ones here,
I've never noticed a lack of bugs in San Diego, but
yeah, I don't
All
know. Or else we just have ones that like aren't oppressive.
Sure. Yeah,
you know
whatever.
What I mean?
Oppressive.
Like here we got the red wasps, which terrify me. I'm not gonna lie. I had an awful experience with the red wasp.
Parts of San Diego have a
hunting me.
lot of yellow jackets.
Parts, but that's so rare. I feel like I haven't seen this yellow jacket in like 10 years.
Yeah,
And
but
we got
at
like
my
honeybees and like
Um,
tiny ants.
yeah, I'm just going to say you're probably going to have a lot of bee. I mean, it's probably pretty normal.
What about
I would say
mosquitoes?
medium.
Mosquitoes
The
are
mosquito population here is out of control.
Well, man, I don't want this to turn into a climate change podcast, but like,
I don't
you know-
We've never talked about that. I guess it's fine.
mosquitoes breed out of like puddles of water and stuff, right? And with like slightly higher temperatures. So, whether here's how we'll fix this. Here's how we'll get out of this. Whether you think that there's some man-made climate change thing or not, like statistics are high for like rising temperatures.
Sure, yeah.
And it's a breeding ground for mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are just bad everywhere.
Okay,
So,
so I'm not
there's
gonna be able to
that.
get away from that.
No,
Just
you're
'cause-
probably stuck with that
son
one.
of a
So
bitch.
yeah.
Okay.
Hey, we're still 50-50 though, so let's hear your third.
Yeah. Okay,
What's
so the
your
third one is I've noticed the roads here are unnavigatable. Everything goes in a circle. If I've tried, look, in San Diego, the freeways went north to south and they went east to west. And that's also the direction the roads went. And it was awesome. I lived here for nearly 5 years. I can't get anywhere without GPS.
I don't feel terribly differently. All my main arteries here, I'm good with, but side streets and things like basically getting from like 12 South to here required a GPS.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
And but like getting to like that area, being like, oh, I need to get like off 12 South to there. Okay, cool. Like that I can do without any problem. But side streeting is
so it's kind of the same. I assume it's in the same kind of vein, just because it's an earlier state.
Sure, but are you looking to live in a city, or are you looking to like live out a little bit?
Like close to a city, but not in it. Like right now, I'm in it. I live right next to Belmont.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's great. I like it. But like the older I get, the more I'm like, these people suck. There's just too many people everywhere.
Well, that's because the older you get, the more people show up here. Like your age and the size of Nashville are intrinsically linked.
And so a little bit further out, but not a lot.
Yeah. Well, I just bumped your mic. You're probably 50-50 on that too. So
Okay.
I think it's a function. I think it's partially because Nashville's old, but I think it's mostly a function of the fact that Nashville's, you think like a circle. Because
yes, I mean, that's a thing. But to counter your point, what things are older in America? I mean, obviously not what things, but, there are a few things older in America than New York and Boston. And, having lived in Boston for Berkeley, like, New York is great because it's all grid. But Boston sucks. Like road structures, like there's one part, the part that where Berkeley is and that I spent most of my time has a nice little grid going on, but there's so much of Boston that's built to be, is still the same horse, cobblestone roads.
Right.
Obviously they've been paved over and all that, but like,
yeah,
but like they didn't change the street structures. They just figured it out. Not to mention that, Boston's a city that developed, in parts. Like the Back Bay didn't used to be there. It used to be water, and then they filled it in and made more city out of it. So, but that's the part that has the grid. So you can tell that they knew. People were already mad by the time they filled in the Back Bay.
Yeah. Now, Massachusetts was on our list as to look at as well. But the thing that worries me about that place is the same thing that worries me about Pennsylvania is the winters.
Yeah. That's
brutal, right?
Absolutely brutal. Though I'll say this, because the only job I've ever had that was not musical was being a ski instructor. I ski instructed for a long time in high school and college.
That's cool.
Yeah. I loved it. And, I don't get to ski much anymore, and it bums me out. I sometimes think my cynicism for the world is based on the lack of skiing that I get to do now. So, but those ski mountains in Northeast Pennsylvania, which is a lot of man-made snow too, it's not like Vermont or Colorado. Like, it's a combination. Like, you're trying to get, you're looking for a 50-60 inch base in the height of winter. Like, that's how much distance you want, like, between the ground and the top. Yeah.
I don't know anything about snow. I grew up in San Diego.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that sounds insane to me.
So they end up having to make like a bunch of snow, and like if you get a foot dumped on you, great. And you can groom that out and it'll be totally good. I know a lot of those mountains are having trouble keeping like all their trails open all year and things like that. So the winters are getting a little better, so. Also, Pennsylvania depends, like, because Pennsylvania's 6 hours side to side. I mean, Tennessee's no better. Tennessee's like, if you come in at Johnson City up there and go all the way to Memphis, that's like a 7-hour drive.
Yeah, we're like the wiener dog of states.
So true.
The Wienermobile of states.
Yeah.
No, it's a fantastic transition. To
what?
I have a feeling that the rest of this podcast is going to be Ryan just waiting, like, okay, let me like rein it in, which is fine.
No, you're good. I just feel like it's probably about time to play a song.
It is. We got to let the people know what you sound like.
Sure. Yeah.
And so we're trying something different because as a bass player, you can't just go out there and sing
I'm
and
so
strum
much
your
more
acoustic
like
guitar.
Yeah, I'm so much more team sport. Like like I'm there like to be the bass players are sort of like the kicker.
So we're
not that I care about football. Oh, here's a better example. Bass players are like the catchers. I'm a baseball guy. So like I feel like the catcher a lot, where I get to see I'm the only guy that's facing the other way in a lot of ways.
Huh.
But anyway, it's hard to, if you're a catcher, that's not a great fielding position. Like,
Right.
you're facilitating the team, not being the star, because most catchers can't hit for shit. But yeah, so it's hard to like get called for a podcast and be like, we're going to do a performance aspect, and be like, oh boy, well, I can either not, or we can come up with something else, which is sort of what we've done. Hey, I'm Matt O'Donnell. I wanted to spend a little time in here taking some beats that I've not heard before and working into how I might construct a bass line for that. Let's just see what happens. Why don't you play that for me? We'll start kind of slow. That sounds cool, but let's see if we can add some more stuff in here. Yeah, that's okay. Let's try that down in this lower range. Let's bring it around again. Kind of alternate between this D chord and an F, and then bridging the gap. That's the real magic, is how to create movement between the two notes if we're just doing two notes. That feels great. I could do this all day. That's a solid drum groove, and so, you can easily hear how guitars might get in there. I don't want to be in the way, but putting a little something in there every so often just helps create movement.
And we're back.
We are back.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's talk about Berkeley.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned that people usually have questions about Berkeley. I don't, but
Right.
but it made me think. I'm like, shit, should I have questions about Berkeley? And
No.
I probably should. And I'll say I meet a lot of people here that went to a music college. So obviously I meet a lot of people that went to Belmont.
Sure.
We've had a lot of people on the show that went to Belmont, and usually they're really good players. And then there's Berkeley players, and usually Berkeley players are really good too.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously there's Juilliard. I don't think I've actually.
I feel like you're leading
Worked
up
with
to
anybody
being
at
like,
Juilliard.
and then there's this one, and those people suck.
No, yeah. If it sounds like I have any trajectory with what I'm saying, it's pure showmanship. I have none.
Well,
But-
from like the Nashville music scene thing, like you have mostly that, right? Like the Belmont or Berkeley thing.
That
There
is
are
the main-
there are tons of others. Like,
I will say I feel like Berkeley. I usually think the Berkeley players are a little better.
Well, it's got some prestige to
Not
its
to,
name.
not to stroke your ego or anything,
Sure.
but like I kind of do think generally. I think all the Belmont players I've met are really good, and then when I met a Berkeley player, like they're, I don't know, just as good if not better.
what's funny is I don't think about those things in terms of it. And it's because of the way it's affected me, not deeply, but like because Belmont is here, those people tend to stick together a lot. And like just as Berkeley people coming down, there's a fair little bit of community. Part of my decision to move here and not New York, really, I never considered LA, or like not New York, had a lot to do with a few close friends being here, like friends of mine from college. I'm like, well, at least I won't be alone
Yeah.
down there.
Which makes
If
a
I
big
go down there,
difference
it
when you
makes
move to
a
a city,
huge
yeah.
difference. But I don't think that, like if you go to Belmont, it's really easy to just stay here and like continue that arc whereas Berkeley people by nature have to transplant to
Sure.
be here. And so I think that it's easier to feel left out and things like that. And sometimes people used to talk about it as though it was some sort of weird turf war. I've never thought about it like quite that way, but I think it's that. I think there are not cliques, but like pockets of people that, stick together really well. out of Belmont, and sometimes it feels like Berkeley
Yeah.
folk have to like work in a little bit more.
I will say, because like, not to shit on Belmont, because like, I think anybody I've met from Belmont who is an instrumentalist that went to Belmont was like universally good. Like, I've never met somebody who did that. I think the wild card with Belmont is like if you were like a songwriting or music business. I think there's a lot of people who have music business degrees that I'm like,
Well,
really?
I have a little insight into that for you.
Yeah.
What happens is I worked at Belmont for 4 years.
Oh, cool.
In financial aid, not on the education side at all.
In
Adjunct
stockbroking,
professor. Yeah.
you were stockbroking
Stockbroking
of
for Belmont.
how people pay. Yeah.
And what happens is the people who apply for the music major and don't get it after the audition all sign up for music business. And so it's like half the major is people who wanted to be performance majors. And
But
that's
weren't
just
capable.
the next thing.
But there's actually like an audition process to be on the music side. So you have to be
Yes.
good enough
Yeah,
already.
you already have to be at least decently good.
Now,
Yeah.
Berkeley is that way too, or at least was when I was there. I mean,
I
it's been
assume
like
all
13
music
years since I've
colleges,
been there. I assume that many things have changed, but in my time there, you even if you were in music business, like we'll stick with music business because fuck the haters. I'm gonna say that that you still had to take all the music classes to be in music business there. Like you had to, like everybody had to take 2 years of private instruction on an instrument and theory classes and ear training. Like you still had to have musical chops. Now that's not to say that everybody was good at it or things happen. I mean, even for me, like, I was never, I tried for a hot minute, but I was never going to be a virtuoso jazz player. And the minute that I realized that was true, because you hear so much cool jazz when you're at Berkeley and you go, that seems awesome. Like I want to reach like a height, and that's just hard to do. And I think the minute that I realized that I just wanted to be a groovy bass player, was very liberating, but I still had to take some classes. And one of them, had this hardcore like jazz guy as the professor, and I struggled with it. And I finally told him, like, when we had the one-on-one final, I was like, hey, every performance major has to take this class, right? And, some of us just really like Marvin Gaye and, want to do that. Like, so it might not. And
You
I
told
think
us before your final? Because I want to
Yeah.
do that before your final. Like, call them out after. I don't.
well, I think it helped my grade, honestly.
Oh, really?
I think it was one of those things where I think, and he genuinely seemed like, oh, really? That I think it may have been the kind of thing where, like, he wasn't a normal teacher of that class. Like the guy who was supposed to do it was out. I think this is right. I think the guy who normally did it was out with a health problem, and they got this guy to come in. And I think that he just thought he was teaching this like hard bebop class, and it was just sort of a basic improvisation class, and he assumed that everyone could like blow.
He just went way too hard.
Yeah, and it was
with
like, nope. And I was like struggling through that class, and then finally I was like, hey, I just want you to know, like, 'cause I think that was more what it was. I would just, I didn't want him to think that I was shitty, which, I think is something that many musicians do. Like in your moments where you're like, I just don't want you to think I'm bad, like that I'm just not meeting this. And I was just told him like, hey, like every performance major has to like take this, and like if I just want to be the guy that plays John Mayer songs, like that's not gonna come with like a Miles Davis pedigree of improvisation. And that's not to say that it shouldn't. If you can do both those things, that's great.
Right.
And it just wasn't built for me that way. And
Did this guy ever try to throw a bass at your head?
no.
What's that?
Whiplash.
Oh, Whiplash?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I will say that my bass teacher, who I studied with the whole time I was there, and for years afterward was my mentor. He recently passed away, but he is he was a yeller, like, but in a constructive way, where he also had the idea that like if you weren't serious, he would not waste his time with you. But if he was having you out, like if he was like teaching you and you were wanting it, he was hard on you. He was, he demanded excellence, and was very good at seeing potential in people. And so he would bring that thing out. But one time I started a semester of private instruction, and he was just, because I took him every semester. So he had given me things over Christmas break to be like, here, work on this for the next month, and then come back and like, we'll start from there. and he was just lighting me up. And the next student he had was someone new, and for like better term, kid, he was just like, "Why do you let him yell at you like that?" And I was like, "Man, I pay him extra to yell at me." I don't know. Sometimes I respond well to that kind of thing, like putting pressure on. Sometimes helps. I don't know. I don't do that so much anyway, but when I was young and
we
thought
have a test for that later on in the show.
We do.
Oh, great. But anyway, I mean, the short thing on Berkeley is that I am thankful for all the music knowledge I got, like the innate like inner workings of music. But I think honestly, just being in a community of all very talented musicians with very different backgrounds is the most invaluable thing to get out of it. There are so many, like, I don't know that I guess I would have to by this point. If I showed up in Nashville in 2009 with no music college, if I just gigged for 4 years of my early 20s and then showed up here, like, I guess I would know what Paul Simon's 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover is. But, would I have had a musician that I respected, who had like attained my respect, play it for me and see them be passionate about it? Like, would I feel that same way about it? I don't know. Because that's really the thing, is like, if you grow up in a place like Northeast Pennsylvania, which has a nice little jazz scene and a lot of jam bands, there's a slice of me that is such a jam band kid at heart. I guess it's the big fish, small pond thing. And you go somewhere like that and it's like, everyone deserves to be here. Everyone works really hard and everyone comes from a different background and a different musical upbringing. And you go, well, that's cool. That's cool. That's cool. That's cool. And, if you're open and accepting to listening to lots of different kinds of music, you'll soak that in and you'll be more well-rounded and just have bigger ears for it. That's real. To me, that is really the thing that like lays in my heart about having like the Berkeley experience.
Nice.
Yeah, it's like, I think I've said this on the show before, but we have a friend, Co,
Yeah.
who what's the thing he always says? Like, you're the combined
total
of everything you've ever heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
was
you're
sitting in that chair and he was sitting in that chair last week and he said that to me. I was
Really?
like, yeah, we talk about that all
I've
the
mentioned
time,
it several times on the show. Yeah.
I mean, what more than music? Like, what are you in life if not like the sum part of like everything?
Of everything.
Like that's happened
Right.
to you.
Whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Which is weird because like you are also like, you the individual are also a bottleneck, right? Because this is a philosophical thing I've been wrestling with lately. Not like wrestling with, but just trying to accept, is that every person that you've ever met has a different opinion of you.
Right.
Like, you are perceived differently by every person you've ever talked to.
And you can never fully know what that is.
You can never know, like, because so much of that is just feel and things like, so, I don't know. I'm always just concerned with, like, how I'm projecting myself, I guess. And so, but, like, realizing, like, I can't do one. Like, everybody's going to have, like, the two of you already have even slightly different opinions of me.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I think you're pretty cool. He hates you. Great.
not to talk about going to therapy again.
I'm a neck tattoo guy.
That means that you hate everything.
I hate everyone,
Including my own neck.
especially my mom and dad. For the audio-only listeners, I got a neck tattoo at the When We Were Young festival. And it's not a tattoo; it's a temporary tattoo, and it's a friggin'.
But you're
friggin'
thinking about
Mohawk
getting
skull.
one. You said you think that you could pull it off.
Can you pull off the neck? I don't know.
You know,
That looks
I've
good. I see
always
it.
had a strong disrespect of neck tattoos because I had a friend when we were like 17, 18 who got one, and like it was this ginormous thing that said courage on his neck.
Oh,
and
boy,
that's different.
Everybody
Yeah, that's way
clowned on
different.
him.
Well,
But seeing this little thing on my neck, I was like, it gives me a little edge.
yeah, gives you a little something, a little
My
joie
wife
de
just
vivre.
put on
Yeah.
a bunch of fake tattoos. She went to a Halloween party with her acting friends, which I did not go to by choice. And she dressed up as Harley Quinn.
Oh, yeah.
So she had all the tattoos. She had like the property of here, and
Oh,
like
yeah,
something here, and like something right here. And she
Did
got
she
home
get
and I was
all
like,
out and get like accurate tattoos?
well, yeah, she went to like a store and bought Harley Quinn's tattoos.
Oh wow.
Oh, that's cool.
And
That's good marketing on their part.
Yeah. But the thing is, when she got home, I was like, those look good on you. Like, I'm not opposed to you getting tattoos. Like, go for it. Like,
Does she have any real tattoos?
None. Neither
No.
of us do.
This is probably the year for her to do it because at Christmas, my dad's gonna find out I got my first tattoos.
And she's gonna
And
come home with a full sleeve.
If she has a tattoo this year, we can diffuse.
My wife is his sister.
Oh
yeah.
Oh, for real? That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that makes more sense now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, what does this have to do with anything?
Well,
That
no,
means
no,
we're
it has everything to do with everything, but also like that's also cool.
Yeah, I guess if she's not my sister, it's weird that I'm like, your wife should get some tattoos
because
my
your dad's gonna find out.
Yeah, I guess that part kind of. I have one tattoo. It's a Hamilton tattoo. I have an idea for the next one. Like, I didn't get my first tattoo till I was 30, and
So you got a Hamilton tattoo pre the new current everything blowing up about Hamilton.
no, it was post.
It was after all this.
Yeah, it was in 2016. I got it. I guess.
Okay. When did the hype train start?
Well,
for that.
started in 2015, I guess.
Okay.
I guess that's when it like came out. I could be off by a year or so. It could be a year earlier, but by 2016, like I was like fully like in it.
You were in it, yeah.
But it was the kind of thing where I was like, I found something that was, because to me I've heard two things on tattoos. One is either you let me think of the best way to put this. The two things on tattoos are, one, you either want something that means something to you forever.
And for me, that's this one.
Cool. Or you want something that is like impulsy or whatever, but it's a portrait of your life at that time.
And for me, that's this one.
Great. And you got them in basically the same spot.
Yeah. Opposite sides of the wrist. Yeah.
Hey, a little unbalanced. You need something on the other arm.
On this arm.
Yeah.
So that's how I think about this whole thing, right? Is the tattoo that I have is here. And
Let's see it.
because I'm a lefty, I wear a watch on my right hand. So that's why it's on my left arm, is to give like balance, because I'll be wearing a watch over here and then have something over here. And now, like, the next one that I'm seriously thinking about getting would be like, oh, maybe like up my right arm. So it just kind of just balancing it out. It's this. It says, who lives, who dies, who tells your story, which is like, the last thing in the whole show. And I had ideas for a couple other ones because there were a few things in that musical that really make me feel things.
Now, I've not ever seen Hamilton or looked into it at all.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what I think it is. This is the impression I got.
Great.
The impression
love
I
this.
have is that it is a play about like colonial times and the birth of the nation.
Yeah.
And it's an all-black cast. Is any of that true?
I wouldn't say it's not an all black cast. It is a cast that is supposed to be supposed to have a lot of diversity.
Okay.
That it's not like an all black cast, but the idea that because Lin-Manuel Miranda is Puerto Rican and feels kinship to like the immigrant story of this country and all the different things and races and stuff like that, that the idea is that the play should reflect the diversity of America, even if all the principal players for the most part happen to be white English dudes.
Right.
Well, so in my head, like they recast the white English dudes as black actors. Is that not true?
Sure. I mean, I guess we're talking about an overgeneralization of it, but for the most part, that's true. It's all wrapped is the thing. That might be where you get...
the modern music, I think, is like the big thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a combination of,
But is it like... I thought, like, in my head, like, I know nothing. So in my head, it was like they're recasting, like, Alexander Hamilton and people like that to be people of color to, like, show a different thing. Is that not real?
It is and it isn't. That's sort of
Okay.
true. I think you're putting more weight on it than, like, it necessarily, like, brings in.
Okay.
But, yeah, you're on, like, the right path to that. Yeah.
Yeah, so in my head, my assumption was that it was, like, kind of like a little flip to like show you from a different perspective.
Yeah, sure. No, that's actually really accurate. Basically what it is to me is that, it's a story about like the forgotten founding father. Like no one, like Hamilton's on the $10 bill, but like
He is. I couldn't even have told you that.
yeah. But, you know, he got killed in a duel with Aaron Burr.
Yeah.
And
anyone?
Yes.
Anyone?
Yes.
By the way, I was not making fun of disabled people there.
Oh, man.
That's from an old commercial from the 90s
Yeah.
where a guy had peanut butter in his mouth, and so he
Right.
lost out on a radio competition.
Right.
But, you know, because he was outlived by all the other founding fathers, you know, because Hamilton was an immigrant. He, you know, was George Washington's, like, aide-de-camp in the Revolutionary War, and then became the first Secretary of the Treasury and all these things. Like, Hamilton is a major player of the birth of the country. It just happens to be that he got killed, you know, as the third president, you know, as Thomas Jefferson was, like, being in office. And so all those other principal players went further. Their legacies continued to be built, and, like, he just kind of got left behind. But his fingerprints are all over the building of the country. And so that's sort of the thing, is, like, realizing that he has, like, all this value. Yeah.
What were the things that spoke to you in the play? I don't know. Is that interesting to talk about with people who have never seen it and don't know what you're talking about?
I mean, I would assume that you are in the minority of people
most
that
people have
don't
seen
know.
it. It's
Yeah.
pretty big.
And that's not to say that you've done anything wrong by not having seen
I've
it.
really fucked up here.
No, not at all. I mean, like, it is your
It was at
prerogative.
this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Trying to think of, like, the best things. One, I mean, I just think that
Yeah, you can share for the people who do know. It's fine.
sure, I don't know. This is a long road to go down. I'm about to, like, put on my nerd hat, and, like, we're never going to talk about bass playing in this podcast.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine with me too. You know, it's, oh boy. So one of the things that I love in the world is, and have since a child, is the soundtrack to Jesus Christ Superstar. It is my favorite thing. It is an entirely sung, it's a rock opera. That's how Andrew Lloyd Webber describes it. And that's because it's all sung. There are no, like, said, like, recited lines.
Okay.
And Hamilton is the same way. And Hamilton is that way because Jesus Christ Superstar is that way. It's this, like, odd love letter. Not odd, but, like, it's a love letter to hip-hop. It's a love letter to, you know, America. It's a love letter to Broadway. There's so many, you know, like, references to old Broadway stuff in there and all these things. But also, in the way that Jesus Christ Superstar is, I heard Andrew Lloyd Webber once say that it's the last week of Jesus' life as seen through the eyes of Judas. And so much of Hamilton is Hamilton's life seen through Aaron Burr's eyes. In that they're, like, very different people, though they're, like, intertwined, you know, continuously throughout their lives and things like that. So, you know, an overgeneralization of it is that Aaron Burr was the kind of guy who wanted to, like, wait and see how things would play out before he'd make his moves and stuff like that, where Hamilton was, like, you know, a bull in a china shop of just, like, ambition and stuff like that. And but a big thing that, like, the theme that this tattoo comes from, this is the best way to, like, make this not a long diatribe, is and it's something I think about a lot in, like, society, is the line, like, who lives, who dies, who tells your story. The longer line is, like, you have no control who lives, who dies, who tells your story. And it's the idea of, you know, like, what do you leave behind? Like, what, like, when you die, like, what are the things that you, like, leave behind? Like, what's your legacy? And, like, the idea that legacy is, I think they say it in there, or he said it, I'm trying to remember now. Now that, like, peak Hamilton fandom has, like, rolled off, like, where I could, like, conjure up every line for a while there. You know, legacy is like planting a garden that you'll never see grow, which I think change is like that. This is the way that, like, I view, you know, life and society in a lot of ways. The people, you know, we live in a time of great change, like, one way or the other.
What?
Yeah. Newsflash. But just this idea that I think that it's human nature to want to see change immediately. And I just don't think it's that simple. I think that most large-scale change that's going to happen in the world are going to be things that, like, you know, most people are going to never see. Like, they will be dead and gone by the time like the change that they are affecting happens. And that's scary because, you know, we're all scared of death, like for the most part. And so the idea that it's like, we're not like, I need to see this happen. Sometimes you just push too hard, you know, and sometimes it's about the slower change and like being like, okay, like I need to let this go, or like let go and let grow, kind of thing. And that's what this like tattoo means to me. The other one is is it
like, so who lives, who dies, who tells your story? Is that what it says?
Like remembering that the whole line is like, you have no control, who lives, who dies, who tells your story.
So is it kind of like so you're letting go of trying to control, and just like doing your best job, to like affect whatever changes you want in the world or create whatever you're going to create.
That's how I mean, that's a way that I perceive it. I mean, Hamilton is the kind of person who, you know, designed like basically many of the financial systems that the country runs on still. And that's a thing that he was never going to see, you know, like come to the size fruition of the Roaring 20s or things like that. You know, could have never imagined stockbroker over here, like, you know, getting that hot, like that's just not a thing. And so, you know, but he put those things together and then just let them out in the world. So that's sort of the way in which like I, you know, perceive it. But anyway, for tattoos, like it spoke to me that way. There's another line that's used a lot in the music that's look around at how lucky we are to be alive right now, which even saying it now like hits me a little bit, like, you know, you're just lucky to be alive and stuff like that. And that was a contender, but this felt better to me mostly because I bought the Hamilton book. That's the whole script, and it's like annotated, has like his notes of everything. And this line says on it's like, as Tupac said, this is the realest shit I ever wrote. And once I saw like Lin-Manuel Miranda say that, I was like, okay, well that's the one. Like, because it is like, it does feel that real. So anyway,
that makes me think that we should have duels be a thing again.
Do you know how many duels I'd have been in if we were still dueling?
I'm just like,
I don't know that I would have made it here.
Well, that's the thing. Okay, so you think about it. If we had duels, let's say duels are made legal tomorrow. Who's dueling? Okay, who's doing it? I'm not going to be dueling. You know what I mean? I'm just like a guy. Who's going to be dueling is going to be the people who you're okay with it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And then the people who are like super rich. Because they got nothing better to do. And
Jeff Bezos versus Elon Musk.
Right? That'd be a duel. I'd watch that. You know how many pay-per-views they can make money off?
Oh my God.
I mean, isn't this what Celebrity Deathmatch was?
Yeah, but I want the real thing. I don't want to see no clay celebrities killing each other. I want to see Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk shooting it out.
I want gloves.
You got
the slap, the glove slap.
I want gloves.
Gotta have the glove slap. Yeah.
I'm just saying the people who would duel for my entertainment are people who I might not miss.
It's fair.
Maybe I'm just a terrible person.
Well,
but I'd like to see
isn't
duels
that
come back.
Oh man, we are so off the rails here. Isn't that like how warfare used to work? When like Greek city-states used to like go to war, they would just have their champions fight, like one-on-one fight, and whoever won the war. It wasn't necessarily always like armies fighting it out.
That's a lot more
Brad Pitt,
efficient.
Troy. Have you ever seen the movie Troy?
It's been a long time. I saw it once.
The opening scene, it's exactly what that is. It's he and him going versus their champion.
It is that. Yeah,
and just rolling that dude in like the
but
coolest
that's
way.
like, that's a duel, and it also was war.
Yeah,
you know,
it was also the David Goliath story.
Yeah,
for sure.
Same deal.
Yeah.
Like, here's our best guy. Give us your best guy.
Right.
And then they laughed because that, you know,
Little guy.
little skinny bitch came out with his slingshot, and
Yeah. That's when we learned that weapons are better than hand-to-hand combat. So
True.
Fair,
Right?
yeah.
Projectiles are significantly better than melee weapons.
Yeah.
We know this.
oh man. And welcome to the World of Warcraft podcast.
Hey, I'll get into it. It sounds like you used to play WoW, my guy.
I did not.
I'll be taking a bathroom break. I'll see you guys. Just kidding.
See us in 3 hours.
Yeah.
Well. Okay, that feels good. Where do you want to go?
No, but the
That was a good hard stop to the WoW conversation. I appreciated that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he didn't play. I wasn't going to continue asking questions. I played
no, hold on.
No, that's all right. I got another thing to go with right off that, which is, do you play video games?
I do. Yeah.
You do, because you wouldn't have mentioned it otherwise. That's why I had to ask. What do you play? What is your jam?
Oh. A few things. I play a lot of MLB The Show.
Okay.
Just
Sports games.
Yes. I mean, I don't play like other sports games because I'm like deep into MLB The Show. It's a great way for me to like relax. Like it's a lot of grinding. I don't play online against other people. I'm just like all computer, but I'm like working my way through the programs and like achieving like goals and things like that. But it's a great way for me to have some, and that game doesn't change year to year very much.
No, it's copy and paste.
Yeah. It just gets a little better graphically. They'll change something, things like that. So it's the mechanics are the same. And so it's a reliable way for me to think, like while doing something.
It's like cathartic.
Yeah. I'll have, podcasts on and stuff like that, or like whatever, or just be thinking or whatever. Like, I do a lot of thinking. There's a lot of brain use. So there's that. I also love a good open world first person shooter. The Far Cry games.
Okay.
I love just because, you're not always having to do something important. You can kind of just run around and like find some stuff and do some things like, but again, that's another like.
So did you play like Red Dead? If you haven't, you should. Red Dead 2?
I have not.
You don't need to play 1 at all.
Okay, cool.
It's a prequel.
See, I would. That's the thing is I would play 1.
Right, you don't need to.
Okay, cool.
Red Dead Redemption 2 is one of the best games I've ever played. I've played
is what I heard.
a million. One of the best stories ever written.
This is what I've heard.
Best voice acting you'll ever find in a game. You played it for
I did.
first
I
two
played
chapters.
like so much, and I barely got through anything.
You were like 15-20% of the way.
Because once you start getting into it, you're just like, there's a moment where you just get to go explore, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna go catch all the legendary animals.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and you can
So
just go
I
do whatever
did.
you want. Yeah, you love it.
Oh
If you
man,
like
I should try that. I also I'm also just a big Nintendo fan.
Okay,
There's nothing like Nintendo property stuff like Zelda and Mario and things like that.
Sure. But you're mainly a story driven guy. It sounds like.
Yeah, for sure. I won't. Man, the child me wishes that we had the world where it was like you can choose to do like a story driven difficulty instead of getting my ass kicked like so many times on normal difficulty or things like that. The idea that now like a game like games can be like, oh, why don't you just not like a cakewalk, but
scale it down a bit.
Yeah, you're mostly just trying to get through the through the story.
And then there's games that don't have those options still, and they're always hard.
Every Mega Man game.
Yeah.
Cannot.
The whole Dark Souls franchise.
Yeah. Mega Man, whoever was designing those. Everyone who's designing those games hated children. I mean, and the old Ninja Turtles games too. Like,
Though I will say the hardest game I've ever played was on Sega. Echo the Dolphin.
Oh yeah,
Jesus Christ, that
man,
game! It's impossible.
I owned Echo the Dolphin, and I didn't play. I couldn't do things.
Nothing. You could do nothing in that game.
No, until I was in my 20s, and then I was like, oh, okay, I see what's happening here.
Yeah, I googled it like in my 20s. Like, how do you play this game?
Yeah.
Then I was like, I went and like played it a bunch. I was like, I beat you, game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that game was the hardest game ever made. Maybe I don't know.
It could very well be.
It's up there. But okay, yeah.
Cool. No, that's good. Yeah.
I'm very much. I play a lot of games, but I'm on the other opposite side of you. I'm the competitive first-person shooter, fast-paced, whatever that is.
Yeah,
though I do love those things as well. I just don't play them much anymore.
Yeah, I wish I was that guy.
Have you done any Oculus or like virtual reality?
Oh man, I've had an Oculus on once, and I can be very big on wanting to understand technology. Like I don't want to get left behind. A friend of mine in college and I used to talk about this all the time because we were just we were techie guys. And we would just be like, what's the thing that's finally going to break us? Like what is the advancement where we're going to get left off in the way that we were seeing other, generations get cut off in like 2007, 2008. And so I try and be very mindful of sticking to like understanding things. I would love to get an Oculus. But I will say that the things that I tried out on it, I can just see that that's going to be, such a great advancement
when
of
it
the
gets
world.
there. I don't think it's there yet.
Yeah, I don't know that I love all the metaverse.
I've heard the new one's really great.
Yeah, I don't know.
Metaverse is failing.
Well, yeah, that's the.
We knew it was going to fail. Everyone said this is going to fail.
What
Nobody
do you mean
wanted
it's
it.
failing?
Well, I saw this article. I don't know how accurate this is. I just read the headline.
Yeah,
of
I
the
never
article.
know with metaverse things. I never know how accurate the reporting is on any of it. But
at one point, the article headline that I read had said, 1.5 or whatever $billion metaverse has 30 active users or something like that. And it's just nobody wants it is the thing.
I was listening to a podcast today on the plane where the guy, so it's the guy who made The Social Dilemma.
Oh, okay.
Did you see that?
Yeah, good movie.
So he has a podcast, and he said that not Jeff Bezos, not Elon Musk, the Facebook guy, Zuckerberg, is banking the future of the company on the metaverse. Like, that's where
absolutely.
he's putting it
And
all.
it seems
That's
like
100% true.
So far, not going their way. That doesn't mean it's not going to change.
Which, of course, I've read a number of people talk about that and be like, this is the guy who stole his idea for his company, you know, and has never really, which, you know.
And everybody already kind of hates that guy. Like, he's a bad image right now, you know?
Yeah.
And, like, nobody wants to
Have
log
you-
into your stupid thing.
But have you listened to the podcast he's been on recently?
No.
Mark Zuckerberg has recently been on the Lex Friedman podcast and the Joe Rogan podcast.
Oh.
And
I
if you
listened to like
listen
10 minutes on Joe Rogan, and I was like, I can't listen to this guy talk. He's like not a human.
Oh, if you actually listen to the whole thing, I think they're very humanizing. I think I moved.
I mean,
after listening to him talk for 6 hours, I think I started off at like Mark Zuckerberg weirdo, and by the end I was like, oh, okay.
that's fair. I try and be open to things, and so I'm open to the idea of having a positive impression of Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, I don't
at this
think
moment,
he's-
I'm kind of
really
leaning
have,
towards
like a big impression of him, to be honest. I mean, you hear the things in the media, and like he's got like a weird look, and there's some weird clips out there. But like my favorite ones with the barbecue sauce. If you saw that,
yeah.
where he just has a thing, the sweet baby Ray's barbecue sauce on the bookshelf behind him. And
like,
everyone was like, "What is that?"
It's like Jay-Z on the jet ski, where you're just like, oh man, we just ruined this person.
Like, I promise I'm human too. I need barbecue sauce.
So Rogan went pretty hard on him on how they decide what to promote or depromote, censor, or whatever, and just asked him some harder questions, and his responses like seemed reasonable to me.
Okay.
He seemed very like, "Hey, I'm not trying to do this. Like, but you know,
On a grand scale, you got to do certain things.
here's kind of what we try to do. This is what we're going for, and sometimes we get it right, and sometimes we get it wrong. And I don't know. He just said, I mean, of course, that's like good PR how he was talking,
of course.
but he sounds like a lot more reasonable than how like the Twitter people end up doing it.
Well, sure.
He seemed like, he's got a good perspective, whether they're doing a great job or not.
Yeah, I think people also, their Zuckerberg, some people Zuckerberg is the movie Zuckerberg, which isn't necessarily the same,
Right.
the same thing either. Like if your perception only comes from Jesse Eisenberg as Mark Zuckerberg,
Probably not the
then
move.
like, yeah, it's not.
Yeah. What was that called?
The Social Network.
Social Network. That's
which,
right.
I mean,
That was a great movie. I really liked it.
anything written by Aaron Sorkin is good in my book. He has
What else has he written?
The West Wing. Let's see what else. He did the Steve Jobs movie. He did that movie Molly's Game. A Few Good Men is his.
Oh, so good.
Yeah,
I haven't seen the
weirdly-
Steve Jobs. Is it good?
It's pretty. Wait. Which job did you do? Who was playing him?
not the Ashton Kutcher one.
Okay.
What's his face? That was in
Fassbender.
Yeah, Michael Fassbender.
That was the one that was more.
Yeah. It's episodic.
Yeah.
It's like
as
three
opposed
different.
to
It's
Faster,
three
Quicker,
different
Whatever.
product launches. I think I've only seen it twice, and it's been a long time since I've seen
Yeah.
it. But the idea that it's him about to launch, I think it's the Mac.
2, is it?
No, it's the Mac, like
The original
yeah,
Mac.
like going like for that like famous press conference.
I
where
saw it, but it was
speaks.
like when it
but
came out.
it's three different things, and like there are threads that go throughout it and all that stuff. But yeah, he wrote that. Did that movie, The Trial of the Chicago 7, that was on Netflix. Also the Lucy and Ricky movie that just was on.
Oh, is it good?
Amazon.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the Lucy and Ricky one yet. Actually, I need to do that.
Yeah. Weirdly, I've been thinking about watching West Wing. I watch a lot of TV shows.
You should.
I'm always a beginning to end TV show guy, and I've seen some West Wing because my grandma loved it. And I was thinking about watching it. It's been like on my mind for like a month. And then I logged into my HBO, and West Wing showed up right there, and it was like, "You're currently on season 3, episode." And I was like, "No, I'm not. I haven't not even one time clicked this." And then every day I logged into HBO, and every day was further along. And I was like, who's watching West Wing? And then I realized who's watching West Wing. It's my dad. We have the same name, and he uses my HBO. So he's logging into my HBO, ruining my recommendeds. Just
Does it piss you off that your dad's further along than you are?
West Wing.
here's the rundown on West Wing. The first 4 seasons, totally worth it because Sorkin is there and like at the helm. Then he and the director leave. There's a couple seasons of real dreck, or what I perceive to be real dreck, and then the last season is terrific. The last season like really changes gears. And
How many seasons are total?
7.
7? Okay.
Because
So,
it's the idea of like
5 out of 7 being good is pretty solid.
it starts on the second year of that president's first term of like Martin Sheen's like as president, like the beginning of his second year in office.
Oh, wow.
And then goes through. That's why the last season's cool, is because they finally because spoiler, because Martin Sheen's like character gets reelected midway through.
Right. I would assume if there's more than 4
Yeah,
seasons.
absolutely. Yeah. And so it's finally like, okay, term limits, so they have to have a new president. So it's all that campaign and stuff like that. And then, of course, like some of the main, like one of the main characters becomes the like head of a campaign for somebody, like in the way that would happen in the real world. And so that can be kind of exciting. Also, the episode that they do like a debate in was live.
Oh, interesting.
They did that episode live twice. They did it for the West Coast and the East Coast.
Oh, wow.
That's cool. See, those are the kind of things that make me go, I got to start West Wing.
Now, here's the thing. There are a lot of people that will write off the West Wing and any Aaron Sorkin thing as like his liberal bullshit. And that is total, like,
Sure.
there is validity there.
Yeah, everyone's got their influences.
Yeah, for sure.
Whatever.
But there's a podcast called The West Wing Weekly where they go like episode by episode, and one of the people who's like in the show is one of the hosts. And they had Aaron Sorkin on, and he said that his model at the end of the day, he kind of wrote every episode, but there was a writer's room and they were basically just feeding him and then he was doing it all. But he said the way to get an issue brought up on that show was, tell me what you think about something, but then you also have to tell me what the smartest person in the room who disagrees with you thinks. And that's how you pitched like a real world issue for them to deal with on the show.
Oh, that's interesting.
And, he tried to varying degrees to get the counter issue, the counter argument in all the time.
That's good.
So,
and that's a good way to do it.
Yeah, but that's how I, for better or worse, to often the consternation of my wife and other people, how I try and live my life. That sometimes means that, like, if I'm having a discourse with somebody about something, I don't want us to just sit around and agree.
My God, thank you.
So
thank you so much for being this kind of person.
Do you take the opposite argument? Do you argue the opposite point?
Almost always.
Yeah. I love a good contrarian.
I want you to change my mind.
Sure.
If you have more evidence, you have a better reason, everything that you say is more right than me. I want you to tell me all those things, because if I'm wrong, I want to be right.
To which I will say, but you never do change your mind.
It's pretty
to which
damn hard.
you will say, yes.
It's pretty damn hard, but
Sure.
But I have changed my mind. I have changed my mind before, and I want to have that discussion. I want to talk. I want to argue about it. I want to be completely on opposite sides.
Well, no, because what's the point of agreeing?
How boring.
You obviously know, we agree. Let's move on.
Right.
But yeah, why?
I was
why
already
do
postulating in my head earlier that you guys are like similar people.
that? Oh boy,
I was actually thinking that earlier too. So
terrific.
I was like, we talk similar. Like,
Well, I sense a second podcast going on.
Yeah.
The Matt and Jerry Show.
Okay, fuck you, homewrecker.
I don't know. You got the sister wife thing going on.
Sister wife, we say that.
no, it's
okay.
just like when we had the Robinson on. Robertson. Robertsons. I keep saying Robertson. And like halfway through, I was talking to her, and you were just like, "You guys should just have your own show." Like, it was just us going back and forth for like 45 minutes. Yeah.
So I want to drag us back to music.
Yeah,
but,
please
like,
do. I would
maybe-
love to. I would love to. I mean,
But maybe this is like man, words are bad today.
that's fine.
You just got back from
Yeah,
Vegas.
Yeah. What is the thing where you show some foreshadowing?
Yeah.
Foreshadow. I think I'm going to try to get you guys on a debate later.
Oh boy.
But before we do that, I feel like it's been enough time. We should probably get you back out there and do another bass thing.
Yeah, let's definitely do that. Let's see what other weird shit I can come up with on the bass. Oh, that's really groovy. It's busy though. Let's see if I can fight against my better instinct to just play a lot of long notes that we're going to let these drums shine because that's a groove that's worth shining. But let me do something that I normally wouldn't do and be a little egregious. So, 1, 2, 3.
And we're back.
Now, okay, so I mentioned in the intro, and then we never got there. But so you play for Sara Evans,
Yes.
and I mentioned and I hope this didn't sound dismissive. I'm like, I don't even know who that is. I feel like after being in Nashville for 10 years, I think in the beginning of being in Nashville, people would say names all the time. There's so many people say so many names here.
Yep.
And for a long time, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. I think in conversation, I just say yeah, as though I know who they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because there's so many. But at a certain point, and I think your personality brings this out in me, in 2020 changed me a little bit in how I relate to Nashville.
Didn't it change us all?
Yeah. Previously, I was trying to kind of fit in and go with the system. And something in 2020 changed me where I was just I don't want to keep trying. I'm just going to
I want to hear more about how I influenced you to do that.
I think that, well, you
No, this is about me. We're here for me. That is the most self-centered thing you'll get in this whole podcast. I just broke character there real fucking hard.
Let's talk. Let's talk more about that real quick.
It's a deep dive.
Therapy preview. Bring that up with her. And yeah, I'm just kidding. No, it's the best. I have several friends who are in therapy actively, and we'll be talking. I'm like, maybe talk to your therapist about that. Yeah. By the way, I'm pro therapy. You're anti therapy.
I'm not anti therapy. I'm anti therapy for my personality.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Anyway, so where the fuck were we?
Yeah, go back to the 1900s and screw yourself. You and your 20th century shrink hating.
Yeah. So I was.
You were saying I influence everything and how you are.
Yeah,
every
you've changed
way.
me.
Yeah, you broke your own mold in 2020. Yeah.
Broken my mold a little bit, and I'm not trying to. It's just led to me kind of just being okay with who I am, and being
If you don't like it, fuck them.
Kinda, but maybe not that far. But for me,
that's literally what I say.
That is what you say, yeah. But I think I'm just kind of I'm doing me here in Nashville, and there's some things that I should know. Because I think that's ultimately the ultimate fear when you're with people is oh, if they realize I don't know this thing, they'll think I'm less or something. And I'm at a point where I'm just I don't know that thing, but there's so many things I don't know.
Oh, you ready for me to brag a second time in 5 minutes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel that way too, but I also know that there are 1,000 things that I know tons about and other people don't know about. So right.
Exactly.
For instance, we don't need to talk about this, but a huge love of mine is professional wrestling.
Oh, damn.
We can talk about that.
That's I
don't know much, but I'll
that's
talk about
a huge thing for me. And it's I can give you the psychological, historical, and financial implications of the professional wrestling system. Most people that I know can't do any of that. And it's so I know that and you don't, but I freak out all the time because I'm do I know that? Am I adequate? Yeah. Anyway,
So, did it bother you when they switched from WWF to WWE?
No, I was out of it by that point.
Okay.
I'm back into it as an adult, but that was when that happened. Was sort of when I fell off.
Gotcha.
Anyway, music.
I was recently listening to an interview with Rick Rubin, and he talked about how he loves professional wrestling.
Yeah. And
he's a
he
big
makes
fan.
me feel. You listen to Joe Rogan?
Yeah.
They talk about a lot. I have not listened to that Rogan yet. I plan to. It's just.
Rick Rubin interviews are life changing.
Yeah, he's about to come out with a book on creativity.
Yeah, he talked about it.
I'm sure.
I'm gonna buy it.
I'm
Probably
sure
why he was
that
on the
because
show,
it's about to be November and it comes out in January. I said that I was I am so afraid that I'm gonna get Rick Rubin oversaturated because he's going to be promoting this book like everywhere, you know, in a time where like he has a podcast, you know, where he's part of the Broken Record podcast with, he doesn't do them all, but like that's cool. But him as like an interview subject doesn't happen a lot. And I'm just so like, please don't. This happened to me with Mark Ronson a couple years ago. I love Mark Ronson. And, but I heard him tell like the same 8 stories like 12 times and things. And I was like, and that's not bad. I still love him. It didn't diminish anything, but it was like, oh, and here's the DJ Premier store, you know, that just kind of thing.
Same thing if with stand-up comedians. Like, if stand-up comedians come out with a new special, they go on every talk show.
Yeah, for sure.
And they tell the same story, which is in their special, and I get it because it's already funny and polished and great. But then when I hear it in the special, I'm like, I know this story.
Yeah, but what's funny about the Rick Rubin thing is that he said, maybe it was in that Shangri-La documentary on Showtime, he said that his ideal producing situation would be to never meet the artist. To somehow like produce remotely. Which is totally on brand for Rick, but also like that is so far like, you know, so far removed. But so it's the idea of thinking like, oh, but if you're going to be on a bunch of stuff to promote this book, I hope it doesn't like burn me out.
Yeah. But you know, one artist that Rick Rubin's actually never worked with is Sara Evans. And
that is correct.
So
you're trying so hard,
I love
Ryan.
this. Though if she wanted that, I would, I want
you to know, as soon as you said professional wrestling, I saw this.
You saw the path?
I saw the path.
Yeah.
So I'm just glad I made it out.
No, yeah, good.
Of the jungle alive. So, okay, so, but that being said, so I mentioned earlier, like, oh, yeah, I don't really know Sarah. So, but I do know her song Stronger.
Yeah.
That one was big enough that, like, it hit me anyway, even though I wasn't, like, a country music listener.
Man, that's the thing about Sarah, is the songs of hers that people know are gigantic.
Yeah.
Like,
so that song has something like 75 million Spotify, which is big, but
it was out
also
pre-Spotify,
it came
right?
out 2011. Spotify's like 2011 or 2012.
Yeah.
So any songs that came around that time, they didn't have their peak life in Spotify.
that's right. Yeah.
So they're less. So
no,
like,
that song means so much to so many people. Like, it's really incredible. I'm super fortunate to be on stage and watch people react to that song. I love watching people react to songs anyway. I love it. It's something that when I was at Berkeley and took James Taylor's brother Livingston's class on stage performance, he was very big on like, and you know, to a fault, I don't necessarily know if this is a universal rule, but it's what he would say, is that like closing your eyes when you play is like disrespectful to your audience, and that like it's important to watch what you're doing land. You know, I close my eyes tons when I play, but I am really fortunate to watch, you know, like I said, songs of Sarah's that are huge are gigantic, and being able to watch especially a song like that land is a really incredible experience.
how does it affect people, or what do you see?
You know, she kind of starts it out through the drum loop of the intro, you know, saying like how she loves getting to hear from people that it means so much to them. It also makes her like a little sad that people had to go through something, you know, anything that it would be that requires you to like come out stronger, like in the end. But,
do you know this song, Jerry? Off the top of your head?
I think so, yeah. Oh, I'm not going to sing it for you if that's what you're looking for. But yeah, I mean, I
you
think
should,
I know the
and
right
then
song.
I will time code copy, you know, this podcast to her and be like, listen to this guy.
Yeah.
I get a little bit stronger.
Oh, that's not the one I was thinking of at all, but I do know that song.
Sure.
What stronger song were you thinking of? Faster, better, stronger.
That one? Stronger. I don't sing. I don't fucking know. I can't sing it. In my head, I can hear it, but I don't know.
That was great.
I wanted to
You know what I'm talking about?
I wanted to bring my phone in and play like clips, but I left my phone in the other room. So if you don't know the song,
Also, that's how you get a copyright
go
strike.
listen.
Yeah.
Go listen.
I think under certain seconds is actually fine, but
Yeah, you can like you can put it like as a bed under this, like in post. You can like post, like get a little bed while we talk over it.
I don't know, the YouTube algorithm's pretty damn good now.
Yeah, it sure is. When the pandemic first started, I DJ'd in my like office a little bit, like on like, and I still get like notices from Facebook that are like, hey, like we found some copyright stuff in like one of your videos. I'm like, this video is 2 years old. Like,
I mean,
one,
we
how did you not notice
we
it?
get a copyright thing every episode we post,
Sure.
pretty much.
But I dispute them, and then
And then
it
they
gets
just get rid
removed.
of
Yeah,
them,
of course.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead, back to your Sarah Evans line
signed the
of,
form.
back to your line of questioning
Yeah.
about Sarah. But,
So you see it land.
Oh.
So she intros it, and then do you
Yeah, but it's
see
just-
looks on people's faces? Or
yeah, the way people sing along, you know, you'll get a lot of people crying and things like. I mean, I think especially in country, like as a strong female artist, the way she is, I think you get a lot of like divorce and end of relationship things like that are hard for people, and they feel those things. But I mean, it's not. The lyrics are more vague than that. It can be about anything. I think people that have gone through death, people, like losing people or any kind of loss, like, that you feel bad about, and then you realize, like, you feel better than the day before, or like, you're progressively getting stronger. And one thing that's really cool is that's one of my favorite moments in the show, like, because that song really blows up in a way. Like, it starts out very small, and then by the end, it's the closest thing we have to a jam in the show is like the outro, and it's just big and like ballsy and all this, and it's a lot of fun. I like to imagine at the end of that song that we're a jam band. I want transcendence, like in that, and it's always going to be whatever it is. I mean, depending on how you count the amount of measures, like 16 measures, or 8 times through the progression, or like whatever it is, like that amount. In my brain, I program it to say, we're going for it. And I know, and I play very similar things, like on the bass and all this, like, it certainly is not freeform, but I try and approach it with the same, like, vigor that I hear bands that are playing freeform and just, like, open up and explode do that with. That's how I want it to feel. Like, whatever I'm doing on the bass, that is how I want to project that moment.
So how did you get on that gig? For people out there who are like in music school now or want to or whatever, like how do you go from not Boston College of Music? Why was I going to say that?
Yeah, what the
Berkeley
hell?
College of Music.
It is the
Yeah,
College
in
of Music in Boston, so
Yeah,
you
it's the one.
were technically right.
Yeah.
That's
So
the
how
best
do you-
kind of right.
So how do you go from Berkeley to actually playing with an artist who has had hit songs, where you get to watch things land with people and people emotionally react to what you're doing?
For Sarah specifically, this is not the story, or maybe it is. I think it's equally the story that is how things happen and how things don't happen. My wife owns she's a personal chef. She cooks for like 20 families a week. She has a great thriving business. I am super proud of her. She started that business during the pandemic. And we've been super lucky that it thrived. I should say we own it. Like,
Yeah.
as the husband, I have culpability.
You
in this
legally
as
own
well.
50% of that business.
right.
Don't let her forget it.
But I was, as we were coming out of that, of no gigs, no nothing. Like,
Real quick though, that means she owns half of your bass. Are you comfortable saying?
Yeah.
Oh wow,
that's totally fine.
man, that's true love.
I would
Or
like
just math.
Yeah, sure, something like that. I would like to hope it's the former. So, I was delivering some food for her on a Wednesday afternoon, and I got a call that was like, hey, this is like 4 p.m. Hey, we need somebody to leave at 11 o'clock tonight to go sub for Sara Evans. Are you free? Are you available? And I called my wife. I was like, hey, this came up. Like, there's no reason that nothing in our like calendar that says like I can't go do this, right? And she's like, nope. So I called back and was like, yep, I can do it, and so I, quickly went home, packed a bunch of stuff, got sent, got sent material in the process of this, was getting hooked up with tour manager and everything, like, because I mean it's a real tour, like there's a bunch of good infrastructure like around this kind of tour. And so
No, were you subbing for just one night, or were you subbing for a weekend?
I was subbing for
whole tour?
for 3 weeks.
Nights.
It was a weekend.
Okay.
This is another, like, you know, important wrinkle in this whole story, I think. Sarah's brother had been her bass player for her entire career.
Oh, wow.
So I guess, and this is probably wrong, I don't, know the entire history of, her band working, but like, I guess it is most likely true that I am the second full-time bass player she's ever had.
Wow.
After years and years of like career. And so he was sick, and had to call out. And so they just needed someone to come out for the weekend. So, 18 hours, or not that short, like, yeah, 18 hours later, like I needed to be able to play this entire show.
That's crazy.
Yeah. The two things that made it there are a few things that made it easy for me to be successful at this. One is that the rest of the band is incredibly sharp and they know what they're doing, and they made it very easy for me to just get on stage and play as much as I had been able to absorb and do it. And I would like to imagine that they all would say that it felt good, like the show. Also, my friend John Shaw, who is the person who called me for the gig, he plays guitar and mandolin and banjo and a bunch of stuff in the band. He had great charts. And if I had to write all my own charts, I probably would have been much more sunk. The fact that the resources that were given to me were very good and made it like able for me to set up for success. Also, I have spent a lot of time in my time in Nashville playing cover gigs. I mean, like most people do, but I've done it a lot, and I've had to learn 20 songs in a few hours a number of times. And sometimes that just means like getting a chart written out and you don't get specific parts or whatever, but I've had to internalize to some degree a large chunk of songs. And I think if I didn't have experience with that, I probably would have also been in trouble. So those are like to me, what I always say to people are like the three determining factors of me being able to show up for 3 shows and, slot in well. So that was like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday weekend, like 3 shows. On the Saturday, I got asked to do a show on Tuesday in South Dakota, because they weren't, they just weren't sure about the situation of her brother, who was also named Matt.
Interesting.
Yeah.
They had zero work in transitioning bass players.
Yeah.
They just had to keep saying Matt.
They refer to Matt Evans, or I shouldn't say they. Our drummer Jim refers to Matt Evans as OEM, original equipment Matt, and then me. But
New Matt.
yeah, and then so I was like, okay, I need to be in Vegas after that show though, so they got me a ticket to fly to Vegas from South Dakota. And while I was there, Matt Evans texted me and said, hey, without being too specific or anything, like it was just a matter of like, hey, I think I'm gonna take some time off, like, would you like to do all the dates in September? And so I was like, yep, sure, would love to do that.
All right, what are you gonna say? You're gonna be like, you know what? I got better things going on. That's pretty good.
Well, yeah, sure, but here I'll get to that in a second. So then it was a sort of like the end of September was coming. I knew they had a bunch more dates. I hadn't heard anything, and I just sort of asked around. I was like, what's the deal? And so I've just been there ever since. Like ever since I got called to show up like that night for bus call, like I've been the bass player in that band. Wow. Which, Sarah is a monster artist, and so you're supposed to audition for stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like you really don't get to just show up and keep a gig. And so I do feel really proud of like what I was able to do in limited time, and like whatever skills I was using to make that work out. That they're like, yep, we're just gonna keep them.
Now, how did they find out about you?
So my friend John,
because we started with like, how do you get to this
yeah,
role
sure.
for somebody kind of starting out?
Well, that's the thing is like,
and my takeaway is like, someone will just call you.
Man, this is the story. I mean, so I've been thinking ever since you guys asked me to like come on.
Yeah.
I've been really thinking about things because like I don't think of myself as the kind of like person that has like a big outward facing image like of me as a player. I've managed to stay. My wife always loves to remind me when I'm like being too hard on myself. She's like, you've been employed solely as a musician for well over a decade. Like,
That's pretty
what
crazy,
are you
yeah.
freaking out about? And she's right. But, some of that is just the modern world of being like, I don't have a cool social image. I'm not posting cover videos every week or whatever. And it's like, ugh, I don't know. So it is always worth reminding myself that I've been working for that long, ensured that way. But it's also, to a fault sometimes, I can sit around and wait for people to call me, because most things have happened based on, on word of mouth. Like in a lot of ways, like I'm not a big internet presence person as a bass player, but people like what I do.
So how did they find Sarah find you? Yeah.
So, allegedly, shouldn't say allegedly. Apparently, apparently they called like 30 players, before they got to me, which is even more incredible for the idea that I'm the bass player on this gig now.
Yeah.
Is that
But that
like
does mean that of all the bass players in the world, you're number 31, which is not bad.
that's fine?
That's pretty damn good. No, it's fucking phenomenal.
Sure. Yeah. Great.
I want to call this episode like Matt O'Donnell 31st ranked bass player.
Yeah. What is it? What would it be like? Faking success in plain sight or something like that. So
To be fair, it's actually called I'm Smooching Your Weenus, but
I smooched your Weenus? Yeah.
Yeah,
Please. I would love if one of my shitty EP names was the title for this episode. But then I got to cross it off the list. So again, like I'll get to your question, but that to me is another like miraculous thing is that they called like a whole bunch of people and then like the random guy that they ended up getting to come out and do the gig is the guy they kept.
yeah. But were you random?
Well, so my now friend John Shaw, like I didn't know anybody in this band prior to, and John called me, and he had gotten my name from my friend Mike Rinney, who's a terrific bass player. I've known Mike for a long time, and Mike is always happy to to recommend me for things, and so.
Yeah.
He had recommended him, or Mike had recommended me to John, and so that's just how it happened.
So what I'm hearing is for these students who are now in the major, the secret is networking.
Sure, yeah.
It's knowing a bunch of people.
Yeah,
That sounds like that's how it happens. You just knew a bunch of
really
people.
is, and I mean, you're talking to someone who hates continuing to network. You know what I mean? Like I don't really go out like. And like hit all the scenes and stuff like that. That's just, the introvert in me is too strong to do those things, and so I'm incredibly lucky to have the community of like musical friends that I do, because they continue to vouch for me and like help me acquire work.
Yeah.
And things like that. Mike had previously recommended me for the Ruston Kelly gig too, so Mike is owed like 15% of everything that I do. He may as well be my manager at this point.
Which, yeah, I wanted to ask you about. So, like, Ruston Kelly, for people who don't know, is he still the husband of Casey Musgraves?
No, they've been separated for some time.
They separated.
Yeah.
At
Well,
some point-
they're divorced. I mean,
Yeah.
they are no longer a thing.
They're no longer. Okay. They were a thing.
Yeah.
And he has a pretty large name himself.
Yeah.
When you played for him, was he like a national touring act, or was he kind of more starting out? I don't know. What's the time frame on that?
Sort of both.
Okay.
When I played with him, it was 2018. It was the build up to and his first headlining tour around his first major record, Dying Star, which is an incredible record. Ruston is incredible.
Yeah, that was around the time I heard about him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And NPR had like a ton of buzz on him and stuff, and we did a tour of like 500 seat, like 500 standing room, like rock rooms, and mostly sold out the entire tour. So it really was like he was coming out, and also had so much buzz that it was already a big deal.
Gotcha.
He is truly incredible. I didn't stay there long. I just wasn't the right fit.
Like music style wise, personality style.
I think music style wise. Trying to think of how not to like betray like people in this, but
yeah, sure.
I mean, at least for me, like I don't think I was playing with the band very well. I don't think I was the right fit. The beautiful thing about that record is that there is so much sparseness, and especially on the bass, like it's almost like the bass isn't happening until it is. And it's just these little moments that poke up, but they're super important. And I think that coming from a number of like gigs where it's like, you got to play like the record exactly right. And, we're playing to a click and there's tracks and all these things, like that was very different. And at the time I was so like, well, I got to play this just like the record. And I think that he was looking for something different. Things that I've seen more recently of their show, like it's a lot like more rock and like it's edgy, and I think that that's what.
So he's not like necessarily like a by the record artist. The band kind of does a different thing with it.
Yeah, I think that tour was a lot of figuring that out.
Gotcha.
Figuring out what that was going to be like. But it was that I was just trying to be like, well, it's, like I'm playing so many of the things just like the record, so I've got to be okay, and it didn't translate as well. And I mean, the Cal Knowles who's playing bass now on that gig is a terrific fit for that gig. Like I am ecstatic that they have gotten that figured out. I've never seen, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say never, but like rarely have I ever seen creative energy like Ruston's. That he could just spit out an entirely fully formed, like abstract, really cool song in a few minutes. And it's terrific. Like really just like pulling the muse out of the air, which isn't a thing that I have. I'm not like a writing kind of guy. I like, I like arranging and producing. Like I think of it as interior decorating of music, But yeah, my connection to like the muse isn't strong. So I've been around some really incredible writers like that, like Ruston, a writer named Sean McConnell, who's incredible. Like those are guys who, are really tied into the creative, slipstream. And I've been really lucky to play bass for a number of people like that. So
now I know we are coming up pretty close to our time here
because we jerked around talking about.
That's what we're supposed to do. That way it leaves plenty of stuff for episode 2.
That's fine.
And then 3,
yeah,
4,
love it.
7. Like this is a forever relationship you've locked yourself into, just so you know.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
But
before you ask
you said no therapy for you, right? Because it sounds like maybe.
So before you ask one last important question, Jury.
Yeah.
We did promise the listeners a debate.
Oh,
and,
man.
Here's the debate that I'm going to try to induce.
We can do a quick one.
Yeah.
I love it.
Doing therapy versus not doing therapy. And now it's interesting because you started off by saying that you haven't done therapy yet, right?
Right, yeah.
But so he never has either.
That's
and
not
I'm
true.
the only one of us who...
I've done therapy several times.
You have?
Not as a kid.
As
Yeah,
a
I
kid.
did too. Like around
Okay.
like my early teens, I did like some work.
Okay,
But
so we got some child therapy, but haven't really done therapy as an adult. You're against it. You're about to start it, so you must be at least somewhat for it.
Oh, I'm totally for it. I think this is going to be a terrible debate.
You think so?
I think we're going to end up agreeing.
I mean, I'll just tell you like the deal with that is mostly I think I've wasted a lot of time in my life to this point weathering storms. I think that I up to this point have had a very good track record of things happen and I don't feel good about them, but I've learned that I've always taken like a this too shall pass attitude. Whereas maybe if I'd been more proactive, I could have gotten out of funks like way quicker and like moved on to things. And I've probably just wasted a bunch of time like by being like, whoop, like I'll just a very good friend of mine once said, people do self-destructive things when they're sad. You just drink more coffee and read more books. And that is 100% true. It's just like, okay, like I'm just gonna read books and drink coffee until this is over. And I just think it's necessarily like, and what's funny is I am starting therapy in a like good point in my life. Like I feel pretty good. Like I'm not, it's funny because like the therapist I'm going to go see didn't have any spots open like immediately. And she was like, like maybe like November, like I think that I might have some openings in November. I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm in no danger. It's not like a like life-threatening situation. It was just like, I think I just want to figure out some better strategies for me dealing with me, because I'm so internal that I would just like to have kind of like, I'd like to have the home edit of my brain, have someone like I want to figure out how to better organize it and access things and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm very much I'm not anti-therapy. I don't think therapy is bad. I don't think it's
okay. Well, here's the thing. What you said for your personality,
yes,
it's not for you. What thing do you think that is?
So primarily, okay, there's a few different things that go into it, but primarily the main kind of focus is, well, I guess it's twofold. But on one side, I feel like I process my own thoughts and emotions very well. I have always done that. I've always kept to myself for the most part. I'm not against sharing.
Sure.
But I process things very well. And I feel like I don't need that extra push. But on the flip side, and this is probably the much larger driving force, which is just simply, I don't trust a stranger. You are a professional who doesn't know me, but more importantly, I don't know you. I don't know where you come from. I don't know your background, the way that you are, what you believe, what you think.
That's fair.
And
this
all of those things,
is the skeptic's guide to therapy.
And all of those things do color what you say to me, because you are also a human. And if I am going to discuss things of a deeper nature, a more internal thing, I am much more interested in talking about that with somebody who I know or someone who knows me. Because I feel like that leads a lot of connection. I do think there's something to be said for the value of the anonymity of it all, of like they don't have a predetermined picture of you.
Yeah.
But I just think that for my personality and how I work, I don't think there's really too much of a benefit there.
All right, that's fair. I'll tell you this about the thing. I was referred to the therapist I'm going to go see was referred to me. I can understand what you are thinking about, like, the anonymity, blah, blah, whatever. What I would say to that is a thing that drove me to like finally like start considering like therapy. Not that I've ever been against it. I just, never got around to it, I think is really the thing, is I read David Chang's book. You guys know who David Chang is? He's the chef at he's a restaurateur. I think he's not a great chef. Don't at me. I think that he has great ideas. I just don't think that he's anyway. The food, we can have an entire
he's
food
on next week.
thing.
We're gonna ask him.
Yeah, great. A big function of his memoir, talks about him like finding therapy, finding out that, he has some like disorders and things like that, and it helping him a lot. And one thing that he gets through in his book, though, is that he it was finding the right fit.
Sure.
And I hadn't really thought much about that, but I also knew when I read that, I was like, yeah, I should be thinking about therapy, but I'm afraid, and I'm still afraid of this. I don't know that this person's going to work out, right? But what my fear is that I'm going to go through 5 people, right? I'm going to start like, and be like, nope, not you, not you, not you, not you, not you. And then person number 6 is going to be the right fit, but I'm going to be fucking annoyed by the time I get to that person. And it's going to ruin, like I'm not going to want to do it by the time I find the right like fit person.
Sure.
And I still like, I hadn't thought about that much in the past couple of weeks, but like I still have that like trepidation a little bit. Like I hope that, I was the reference for this therapist came to me from someone who I feel a lot of kinship with, like personal kinship. Like we have a lot of the same type things, like personality type things. So I feel like if they really like her, that I probably, or there's a better chance like starting out that I will, but I'm also not being like, yep, I found a therapist. This is going to be my therapist.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's why I'm saying, like, this is probably not a very good debate, because I'm like, yeah, that all makes total sense
Well,
to me.
I said it wasn't going to be a good debate.
Yeah,
so,
you said that. Yeah. But,
So, yeah, you guys
foiled
were
your
just
plans.
yeah, I'm like, that makes. I'm like, yeah, that all
All
makes
right,
sense.
so
I totally am in
I'll be-
agreement with that. Like,
I'll be the other voice. Everything you said about your reasons against why you're like, here's why I don't think therapy would work for me.
are you going to say those are all the reasons why you should go to therapy?
100%. I think every therapist who's listening, which is probably none, would be like, this is exactly why you need therapy. You have trust issues.
I don't have, but the thing is, I don't have trust issues.
You're overconfident. You're braggadocious about how you deal with your emotions.
Well, here's what I heard.
Like-
No, so I heard you talk about, I think a therapist would really dig in, but they wouldn't dig in a mean way how I'm going to.
No, of course. Yeah.
Do it.
Which is
do
why
it, do
I'd
it.
rather talk to you about it.
I think they would really start questioning you on, oh, interesting, you think you process your feelings well, or you. But the thing is that, like,
I mean, I'm not 100% perfect at it all the time, of course. I'm a human,
yeah.
right? Like, obviously.
And we know each other well enough that
Anyone who were to say that they do 100% of the time is definitely needs therapy.
I kind of agree with you about how you process emotions really well, except for about 20% of them that I think you're shit at. And they're like, I think.
That's a common thing to believe about people like me.
Yeah. I think about 20% of what the conclusions you come to are bullshit, but they're so well justified and so fortified in your mind. And I wish that I could get in there and help you break down those castles and see that you're full of shit.
I'm sure I'm full of shit. That's the thing is, the thing is, like, I don't disagree that sometimes I'm full of shit.
Everybody is.
Everybody is.
Everybody
and
is.
some of the things I think and believe are wrong, just like everybody else.
Yes.
I have no problem with that. I am not married to my ideas. I'm not married to my beliefs. I'm married to your sister. But the thing is, like, I'm not saying therapy would necessarily be the worst thing. I'm not saying it would be a tragedy if I went to therapy. I'm just saying I think I don't feel that in at least this stage of my life that it's something that I need. I feel like
You don't feel like your parents fucked you up?
oh, my parents were both drug dealers.
Oh.
Like, they were definitely like
Man, if I'd known that button was there, this would have been like 2 hours of,
they're not anymore.
Cool.
Yeah, my mom, she dead, but she didn't die a drug dealer. She died a not drug dealer. And my dad is just not a drug dealer now, so we're good. He's cool.
And he's watching The West Wing.
And he's watching The West Wing on my
man.
HBO account.
Which is hilarious because for everything that I said that's good about Aaron Sorkin, he was addicted to crack at some point, like while he was writing TV shows and movies.
God.
Maybe he bought that crack from your dad.
It's very possible. It's very possible. I mean, he was also a youth. Jesus Christ, right? But yeah, that's not the case anymore, you know? But, and so I'm sure they fucked me up. But I think I've dealt with those things during that time period.
Sure.
It doesn't bother me. I'm not angry at my parents.
Well, that's a thing. I mean, that's a fucking albatross of like something that you got to deal with in a
Right.
way more direct fashion
And
than
I've dealt
most
with
of the
it.
ways.
Literally, I think it's probably your core thing is that because you were alone and had to deal with all your shit on yourself,
I've learned to deal with shit.
you've done a fantastic job. But
here's the
because
thing.
of that, you overtrust yourself a little bit.
But here's the thing. But I am also not alone now. I am married, right? And I do share things with my wife. It's not like I just continued to keep things to myself.
And you're married to somebody who's probably like constantly arguing with you about therapy.
Oh yeah, my wife is like the biggest
Oh,
therapy
boy.
fan there ever was. Like, she loves therapy. It's her favorite thing. And so but I'm not anti-therapy. I just don't think I currently need it. Will there be some point in my life that I might? Maybe. That's very possible. I'm not against that necessarily, but as things stand, I just don't feel like I need it.
And I really respect
I'm
how
pretty
how you said that, but here's my counterpoint. Okay? I kind of think when you talk about like needing to trust a person and whatever else, because you're like, they have a bias, I don't know, we don't know each other, whatever. I think there might just be some value to having a conversation with a person, opening yourself up to them a little bit, even though their perspective may be dramatically different than yours, and the things they tell you
Oh no, I'm fine
might
with
not
those
be something
things. That
you
doesn't bother
agree
me at
with.
all. I'm fine with people not agreeing.
Hey guys, you have a guest sitting here. Okay, but in terms of this conversation, do you want to like ratchet up the proportionality of this?
Sure.
Suicide helplines.
Oh shit.
When you
I
call
don't know where we're going.
When you call a suicide helpline, you're talking to someone
Yeah.
who doesn't know you. They are providing you some level of therapy.
Yeah, 100%.
And like, you know, I mean, again, like the stakes are much higher. Like, so it's sort of the same thing, but like the stakes are normally just lower when you have couch therapy.
Yeah, 100%.
But so are you saying
And
that
that's why
like
I'm not against that. That's great. That's great
Okay,
that that's a
cool.
service.
All right, I
I'm
just
not
wanted-
against therapy in any.
I just
in any
wanted to
way.
check in.
No, I'm not against therapy. I'm not against therapy in any way. If anybody feels like they want to get therapy, I'm super in support of that. I'm not anti it. I just think that I don't want it right now.
That is your prerogative.
Right, and I feel like I'm
Unless you are a danger to yourself and others, in which
right.
case
Which
someone
I'm
is required
not.
to.
I'm definitely not a danger.
Yeah, you seem pretty.
pretty chill.
I've been afraid for my life this whole episode.
Yeah,
That's
you
because
seem
of
like
him, not me.
you seem like an unrefrigerated snack pack pudding of danger.
Just real soft.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just not an issue. But I'm not anti-therapy, and at some point in my life, I might feel that I need it, and then take that route. I'm not against that. I just I'm not into it right now. Though I am a little bit more against marriage therapy or couples therapy, primarily because of statistics exclusively. Which statistically, now I don't know if this still holds true because
I know nothing about this, so
isn't-
I'm whatever you tell me, I'm going to take home with me.
Oh, good.
Share with your wife
Right to your
as
wife.
fact.
Well, she'll listen to the episode because one, you know, in the
Are
most
you
loving
sure
and
you want her to listen? Because then she's going to know she owns 50% of your bases.
she knows. In the most loving way possible, certainly in no negative way, she's going to have a lot to ask me about things that I've said here. So, but that's because we have a good communication relationship, you know. Like so.
But I just wait.
You're talking about why you think that couples therapy is bullshit.
Oh yes. So, fuck. I went down some internet rabbit hole. Right. This was like it's like a decade ago. So
You WebMD'd?
close enough. I Google MD'd, but the I read a bunch of shit, and essentially what I'd learned. I don't know if this holds true. Feel free to fact check this, and it might be completely different now.
Wesley,
But
get on it.
At the time, what I had read was that statistically, couples that went to marriage counseling, marriage therapy, couples therapy, whatever you want to call it, were statistically more likely to get divorced than less after going to. And I was like, maybe there's something wrong there. Now, granted, the caveat of that is people who are going to go there are more likely to get a divorce anyways. That's most likely why they're going.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I don't.
And so I don't know how good the data is.
That's tricky. I can't commit to putting down on the public audio record.
According to some research, a quarter of couples who receive marriage therapy report that the relationship is worse 2 years later, and up to 38% of couples get divorced within 4 years.
Well, that's not half.
That's not half. And that's
No.
like I said, I read this thing like 10 years ago.
Also, what's the margin of error?
Right. Yeah, who knows? Like there's
Yeah.
like I believe in science. I believe in science, I believe in statistics and math, things that are factual and provable. I also believe things that aren't, but primarily believe those.
And for a non-stockbroker, you sure use a lot of spreadsheets.
I do. I Excel everything.
Oh man, I had a thought in my mental prep for this podcast. There were numerous ways in which I was going to, or which I was like trying to organize my thoughts about things that were somewhat esoteric, and I had this thought of like, not everything is a spreadsheet,
No.
which can be applied to a number of things. Like if we were going to shit all over like the Nashville music industry or the music business, I was ready to say like, not everything is a spreadsheet. That's seeing like how artists like things like financial, and I was going to equate it to baseball and all these things. Next time we'll get into not everything is a spreadsheet.
Yeah,
But I do love a spreadsheet.
spreadsheets.
Oh,
my god, a good spreadsheet, man.
Yeah, I was cracking up earlier.
Excel numbers or sheets.
I was cracking up
Sheets.
earlier.
I mean, I use sheets
Jesus
for
Christ.
most things in life nowadays.
Cool.
But if I'm doing anything that actually matters, I'm using actual Excel, not Google Sheets garbage. That is for organizing what TV shows I watch, not for figuring out
That is
real
100%
stuff.
correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Sheets is great tool. And Sheets is awesome, and it's so cool that's available always to everybody anywhere you are. But it does not do everything Excel can do and never will.
Why don't we know? We were talking about tech guys before. Why don't we know, like, with instant recall, who founded Google? Like, who runs Google?
It's Surge. Something.
Surge?
Surge.
That was like a soda that went out of business in the 90s.
No, Serg, S-E-R-G.
Yeah.
I'm guessing he's Indian.
But either way, you're proving it that, like, we can't just be like, Steve Jobs,
100%.
Zuckerberg,
Yeah.
Bezos.
It's
Like,
probably 'cause
and they have arguably a greater share of, like, the interneting, like,
Of the world.
space
They
world
are a little less
than,
celebrity.
Yeah, than like, other companies do.
It's two
And-
guys, Surge and something else.
Yeah, I know that part, but again, we're proving
Right,
that thing that it's
100%.
like I wonder why we just don't know that as much as we know, cult of personality tech heads.
But anyway, I mean, we can go on this if you
Yeah,
want, but we do have
we gotta,
important
but I
questions
just
to
want
ask.
to, but I have to tell you, I was kind of laughing earlier while you were talking, and I don't know if you were probably wondering why, but I was looking I'm looking at the camera here, and looking at your side profile and just your guys' personality similarities and this glasses and everything. I was just like, fuck, it's like jury talking to jury. It's but I have this whole like little. I was just thinking, like, it's like alternate universe. Like, this is like, if you could meet you who grew up with drug dealer parents, like, this is that.
I will say,
Yeah.
earlier today, I went and Googled you.
Great.
That's what I do before the show.
I'm glad that I got my website up and running last
Yeah,
night.
he sent me the link.
Oh,
He
good.
sent me the link this morning. Yeah. But in watch, like, the second I Googled you and saw your picture, I was like, he kind of looks like me too. I was like,
Not
and I was like, I
nearly
bet
as
he's a cool guy.
not nearly as handsome.
In person, I feel like you don't look like me as much, but in your pictures, I was like, that dude kind of looks like me.
Perhaps.
But I don't know. I feel like we think in semi-similar ways, at least.
Terrifying.
But
I think you look like a put together version of Jury.
Yeah.
I'm just a pile of trash over here, just falling
You know
apart.
who only eats sushi? Jury. And you're wearing a sushi shirt. That's
that
the only
is
thing
just-
he eats.
It's not the only thing I eat, but I eat a lot of sushi because I have this. I got COVID. I got this taste disorder from it.
Oh, yeah.
I can only eat like a few things, and sushi and raw fish
Wait.
is the only meat that I can
Wait.
eat.
Quickly describe this for me. Like, is it different than just losing your taste?
Very different.
Okay.
So it's called parosmia.
Okay.
And if you want all the information on it, we did a podcast where all we did was talk about parosmia for 2 hours.
Great.
But essentially, so I lost all my taste and smell, and then it came back, and I was like, "This is great. My taste and smell is back." And then 2 months later, like, overnight, my taste changed, and it ends up it's olfactory nerve damage that
Okay.
does repair over
Yeah.
time, so it's temporary. But it's been about a year now, almost a year, and all food started to taste terrible. Most things tasted like I explain it in 3 different ways. There's 3 different tastes that I have. One is rotten meat, not great. One is just kind of general chemical tastes. That's the one that most people who have something describe. And then the last way I like to describe it is trash juice. So if you go take out the trash and there's like a hole in the bag and that juice leaks out, that smell.
That is the Ryman Auditorium alley smell at 2 a.m.
Exactly, same deal, right? Yeah, definitely alley smell. Like,
Yeah.
it's that how things taste. And it's been going down over time.
Yeah.
For a long time, all I could eat was like rice and cheese and raw fish.
I asked because I'm fascinated by it as someone, who is involved with the food business with my wife. And also, like, one of the reasons we got together was, we met on Tinder. That I was intrigued by her being a chef. And I have a long history of just, like, being in love with dining and food and stuff like that. So those were the... But there's a phenomenon going around with sommeliers where ones who have had COVID are finding it hard to rely on their taste now if they had taste problems. And even if they didn't, finding it hard to rely at the level they need to for, the level of, like, some people who are working in Michelin 3-star restaurants, like,
right.
that your knowledge needs to be like that
Needs to be sharp.
it needs to be super sharp of wine. And there's a lot of fear that it's just not happening as much.
Right.
And so, and
It's
also,
supposed to be temporary.
sure, absolutely. But we don't know that
We don't
yet,
know for sure. It's
which
not all the
is
time.
a whole COVID thing of just like,
It's new.
hopefully we'll figure it out. Like, we'll get, gathering data. we the best cooking competition show out there is Top Chef. If you ever needing like Top Chef is great. It's all contestants who own their own restaurants, have been nominated or won like James Beard Awards, like all these things. Like it's very serious people. And there was a chef on this last season who during the competition couldn't taste the food he was making.
Oh my God.
Wow.
That's
Couldn't
awful.
taste anything. And he made it really far. And my wife and I sat there and we kept being like, oh, is this the week? Is this the week he's going to be found out? Like, because also not only is it his stuff, like he's tasting food for other people.
Oh,
People are like, here,
no.
taste this. But he doesn't want anybody to know. And so he's just being like, yeah, it tastes great. Or like, and he's relying on other people to taste his food and things like that. But he's going through it. And he made it well into that season
That's
with
crazy.
no ability to taste. And so,
Yeah, a lot of people are going through
Yeah.
that. Like I'm on the Reddit for Peroff.
Sure.
And I remember like when I first joined it, someone posted like everyone posts like their story of it, and somebody was like, "I'm a food critic, and I lost all my taste and smell, and now it came back and everything tastes bad. Like, what am I supposed to do?"
it's a huge, I mean, it's, we could sit here forever and talk about the ways in which like COVID has like, changed things in unpredictable ways.
Right.
Or not
No
necessarily unpredictable,
scene.
but just like ways that you wouldn't have thought of. And then you realize it's like a nuclear bomb to that scene and stuff like that.
Yeah.
In the same way music was. And no one was thinking about musicians and then realizing like, no, every form of entertainment that relies on people, like is just blown out of the water. But, food's another way. I mean, restaurants,
It's
and now
wild.
with restaurants dealing with, cost of goods increase,
Well, we're coming pretty close to our time here, as I said about 20 minutes ago. But it always goes good, and we just keep going anyways. But
As soon as you say we're getting close to our time, I'm like, all the things I feel like I needed
you're like,
to
wait a
say.
minute, I gotta say it real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, well,
I
next
know.
time you guys can have me back and we can actually talk about my career. We can talk about stuff.
Maybe. I don't know that we'd ever get there, but we can keep trying.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know, 7-8 episodes, we'll get the whole story.
Yeah, right.
I love it. We have you play for like a major artist, and even though country isn't our wheelhouse, like for somebody, Sara Evans is for sure their favorite artist. For like a lot of somebody's.
And they're upset right now listening to this.
And they're like, they talked about therapy? Like,
Yeah, but
Was that Jim Gaffigan voice? It sounds very Jim Gaffigan.
Yeah.
without burning up your time, like here is I could say to you 50 fucking things. I'm like, if I could say one thing about blah, blah, here is the thing about, this is a thing that I would say is a, like, one thing about touring. You go on the road and you think to yourself that it is about the show. Like, at the end of the day, you have to go out on stage, you have to perform well and, impress the crowd. You have to leave that crowd thinking, I am so glad I went to that. That's what you're aiming for. But on our end, that is maybe 15% of our day. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're just roommating with a bunch of people in a tin can, like driving down the road. And then like for the hours of the day, you like disperse like cockroaches into the venue and find your own little corners to do like your thing or go get coffee or whatever. We get back together for sound check, break off again, show back up for dinner, get ready for the show, play the show. Like so much of your time has nothing to do with the show. And so, when you're on the road, like you're not talking about music all the time.
Right.
Nobody wants to do that. Like that's a lesson I got from my bass teacher too, is like I remember getting called to do some faculty gigs, like play bass like with faculty, and he was like, "Hey, listen, don't fucking talk about, like hot jazz records or whatever. These guys want to talk about, their kids, their families, politics, like, they did that when they were young. They're not that way anymore. So like be cool." And that was but that's the thing, is like 90% of the time when you're on the road, like it's not the show. So talking about anything else is like a big thing.
Yeah.
So
it's just how people are. People just like
yeah,
to
no,
talk.
that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody, what's that? I mean, there's commercials like that where it's like, stop talking about work, whatever what is it, Liberty Mutual or whatever it is with the guy with the,
Liberty.
yeah, maybe it's not that. Like, whatever one has like the emus or whatever. Like, it's the guy and his family, and there's like these like big, it's either emus or ewes, like, and they're like talking about something. And his wife's like, no, like it doesn't need to be all business or whatever they say. I'm like, but that is sort of the thing. Anyway,
Yeah, it is.
so
Yeah.
Cool.
So we mentioned earlier that we were going to test out you under pressure.
Oh, cool.
But I want to ask you this. You listened to a little bit of the podcast to get a flavor. Did you make it to the end of any of the episodes?
Yeah, I got to the end of Aaron's episode.
Okay. So
When I listened to Luis Espaillat's, I did not.
Yeah.
Whatever like 10-minute clip you guys had up, I was just sort of like, oh, that's new.
So you may or may not be prepared for this question. We're about to find out.
Look, if you had to choose,
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a little overboard. And you do.
and you do. Now, the important thing about this question is that the answer does not come from here.
And he's pointing at his head, for everybody who's
Yep,
only
for the
listening.
audience, yeah.
Yeah. Does this sound familiar?
No, actually.
Oh, okay.
I was probably like cleaning our kitchen like while I did
Yeah.
this part, something
Okay,
like that.
good.
you know?
Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's as it should.
Is it coming from here?
It must come from here.
It must come from, from the esophagus and lung area?
Correct. Yeah.
Near the human heart.
But if you had to choose,
And you do.
and you do. Now, what that actually means, coming from here and not from here, is that I need an answer quickly. I don't want you to think about it.
Okay.
I want you. What comes to your mind is your truth.
Think about improvisation with music. If you were like at a jazz sit-in,
Yes,
there's no
and-
time to go ahead and think about
Yes, and.
what you might play.
Yes, and
Yeah,
exactly.
yes, and.
Exactly. Except for this
Thank
is
you.
just an answer.
Okay, cool. Great.
But you know, but yeah, we.
But
quickly
it
is
will
definitely
define you as a guest forever.
true.
And whether we bring you back for a second time.
Terrific.
Ooh, high stakes. If you had to choose,
And you do.
and you do, what would you say?
I always love it when a guest parrots the question back.
Yeah, this happens a few times. I love it. I'm always
Yeah.
like, you get
We got
what's
a
happening
musician.
here.
That's basically me being impatient and going, we just asked the fucking
See,
question
a lot
already?
of people just say that. They just
Yeah.
go, "Are you gonna ask the fucking question or what?"
No, if I can make you feel as bad about yourself as I can by parroting and like just really,
No, that actually makes us feel great about ourselves.
Yeah, with our
Okay, cool.
thing, we love it.
Good.
If you had to choose,
And that's the button I always accidentally press.
if you had to choose,
And you do.
and you do, what would you say
What would you say?
is your favorite kind of turtle?
Oh, a sea turtle.
Okay, all right, a little crush action. We've gotten C before. Do we need an after the answer button?
I need
now?
to start pressing that after the answer.
Yeah,
'cause
you
that,
do. That's a
it
great
should
one.
it's a good positive reward
Oh wow.
to hear.
You know why? And
Yeah.
this is going to be great when my wife listens to this. My favorite two things. One, my mom loves turtles. She has a collection of like turtle trinkets. Two, my wife and I got married this past March, and we went to Hawaii for our honeymoon, which was fucking great. And we were
island?
just standing. We went to Maui and Oahu.
Nice.
I would love to go back and go to Kauai. But Maui was super cool. It was super chill. And then Oahu was, like for real, it was city. But we were standing on the beach in Maui and like maybe 10 feet out in the water, there was just a little sea turtle guy going by and he just popped out. And so you asking about turtles, and I recently said to her, I was like, oh, remember that time we saw that sea turtle like just like 10 feet away from us, like while we were in Hawaii? So when she listens back to this, she'll be overjoyed to know that I responded to that question. As soon as you said turtle, I thought about our honeymoon and seeing that badass sea turtle out there. And
Yeah.
What a
sea
good
turtles are
husband.
cool. Yeah, we stayed in Oahu for 7 or 8 days or whatever, and
You
we have
saw
a
a sea
video
turtle.
of you like swimming with a sea turtle somewhere on Instagram.
well, that's cool.
Yeah, we saw them a bunch of times. Yeah,
Yeah.
so you can't touch them though. They made a
No,
big. Like,
no,
do
no,
not
no.
fucking
Yeah.
touch those turtles. You will get arrested.
To great degree, and we're fucking going off the rails again here, but to great degree, they do such a good job there. They do such a good job in Hawaii of reminding you that they're out there. They're America, they're a real state.
Yep.
But they, have a good way to remind you that like this used to be an independent kingdom, and
Not
like
that long
we
ago.
have our own rules here, like just things like that, things that you would never be able to get away with in the contiguous states of like
Right.
the way that they like handle sunscreen. Like that was something I distinctly remember that
Yeah,
they were
we had, like,
big
buy
on like
specific sunscreen.
and stuff. And it's like here people would, lose their minds about like being mandated to like
Right.
make sure their sunscreen is, I don't fucking care, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah,
but
but
like,
they're a small ecosystem.
Yes,
they
that's
have to
right.
be careful.
yeah, and the fact that like between islands you have to do the agriculture check and all that and stuff. You
That's
fly
crazy.
between islands, like I think the way I described it was, in saying that to tie it back into it being like real America. Real America. Stupid.
This episode is now called Matt O'Donnell Doesn't Think Hawaii is Really America.
Man, I could go on a whole thing about people that think that Puerto Rico isn't real America just because it is a state. But the fact that that's, that is an a U.S. state, and you're used to like the molds and spores and agriculture and like whatever when you travel internationally, that you have to deal with that when you're going from U.S. to U.S.
Yeah.
But that's because it's special and needs to be
Protected. It needs to be
protected.
protected.
Yes,
Yeah, it really
absolutely.
does. Otherwise, it would have already been destroyed by now. Because that's what we do best. I don't mean just Americans, though Americans specifically, but humans.
Yeah, sure.
We are really good at destroying shit.
This would be a great way to just cut this episode off after I ask this question. Do you think that we are after I ask this question, please hit the joyful button. Do you think that there's any chance that humans can live in harmony, or are we built for conflict and separation?
No, we're absolutely built for conflict.
Yeah,
100%.
That's how I always fall, and I hate to be that pessimist guy, but I'm like, I don't know why we look for this utopian thing. Like, our entire history is the opposite of it.
Utopia is absolutely not possible. Now,
Yeah.
3 separate utopias could work
Entirely
because
possible.
they would all hate each other.
I want unity. I want.
Everybody wants that, I assume.
Yeah, I mean,
mostly.
Yeah, I would like to imagine so, and like I yearn for that deep in my philosophical heart. But especially as someone who loves history, I'm proven wrong at every step.
No,
I'm given example after example after example after example
Yeah.
of division. But
I don't even know if 2 people can ever really have unity. Like, let alone more than that. Like, it's a nightmare.
Yeah, what does it say when you think about like a good marriage being like, well, you're just gonna fight all the time. You're gonna be annoyed by each other all the time,
Right.
but you're gonna do it together.
That's the that's the thing, and I cannot stress this enough. And I'm assuming.
How long have you been married?
Almost 8 years.
Oh, great. Give me the advice.
Well, what I was going to say was simply, if you aren't married, you have no fucking clue. Because I thought I knew. I was like, nah, I get it. I did not get it. It is nothing like anything else you have ever done in your life, and nothing else can compare. And you can't ever understand until you're in it, and then it's too late. Yeah, it's just it's a.
That's what they say about parenting too, which I'm not, which I assume.
Yeah, that's what they say too.
I'm about to not about to find out. No. But I mean, like, if at some point, in the future, like I will find that out that
Same
there's
thing.
nothing like it.
And I'm still like, I think I know what it's like, but I know I don't, because I've already gone through one thing that I thought that.
Okay, but here's the thing with marriage. Were you guys cohabitators prior to? Like, did you live together beforehand?
For a few months.
Oh, for a few months.
But that's it.
My
We were
wife and I
engaged before we moved.
Yeah, my wife and I were living together for close to 3 years by the time we. So
That probably helps.
yeah,
deal with a lot
I think
of
it
that
does
shit.
help. I think that, but I mean, I also think that it's not. I mean, because people say that they're like, "How's married life?" I'm like, it's a lot like it was before, but it's also not like it. I think if you're really committed to it, I think it fundamentally changes the way you think.
Right.
Like when you take vows like that, you are bound to stop thinking about yourself entirely by yourself.
You gave her half your bases.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. I just cut them right down the middle. The base that you saw in the videos is going home and taking a saw right down in the middle of it.
Yeah, it used to be a double bass, but
Yeah.
that doesn't even make sense.
No. Well,
It used to be a 2-neck bass. How about that?
Well, no, that joke is like because double bass is what like an upright bass
Right,
is known
yeah.
as. So it's out. I mean, it was just funny to me because that's a term.
Right. That's why it makes no sense.
It's part of my vernacular.
But anyways, I think we're gonna wrap it up here.
Yeah, let's wrap it up and do it again sometime.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you back on for another episode. We got to hear the rest of the story,
Sure,
or
yeah.
at least another quarter of the story.
Sure.
We'll get there eventually. But anyways, guys, as always.
No. You're forgetting the part that you always do, which is you ask him where people can find him.
Oh
on the
my God,
internet
you're
and
right. I
things.
forgot about the plugs. We gotta plug
all the
everything.
plugs, which I betrayed earlier by saying like I have no outward facing blah blah blah. You can find me at mattodonnell.com. I have a nice simple website there.
Freshly
Here's some
up?
playing. Yeah, freshly up. I've owned my own domain since 2003. I was 16 and I just knew. I was like, I've got to have it. And more time than not, it has spent down but I pay that $20 a year to make sure that nobody's because my name isn't that unique,
Sure.
you know, but it's important for me to have it. MattO'Donnell.com. I'm Matt O'Donnell on Instagram. One thing that's like clunky and was the hard part about my website is I've been a whole thing that we can talk about some other time is I spent a bunch of time writing for a bass magazine when I first moved to town. And I really do like writing. And so I've been kind of trying to like keep up with having a Substack lately just to get stuff down. It's not necessarily like a full-on newsletter. It's sort of a writing exercise for me, and anyone that kind of wants to peep in can peep in sort of thing. It is linked on my website. I was hoping that it wouldn't need to. You have to go through like, oh, no, let me just read it. I don't want to sign up, whatever. But MattO'Donnell.substack.com has that stuff. Like I said, I'm Matt O'Donnell, no underscores, dots, or spaces on Instagram. I don't like Facebook, so I'm not really up in there. Those are the basic ways. Yeah, so you can find me. Find me those.
You got
ways.
any shows coming up? People can buy tickets for.
Yeah. The most strenuous part of getting my website up to date is I have a calendar there. I have my whole my thing, so you can see it's mostly Sara Evans dates with a couple other things thrown there. Sara does a big Christmas tour at the end of every year, in which we have to wear suits and play Christmas songs.
Fancy.
Which is really exciting. I've only done one. I did it last year when we did, and it's a very special thing. It's really cool. So that is the bulk of the rest of our dates. We have some in the beginning of November, and then from like Thanksgiving up until the weekend before Christmas proper, we are doing Christmas stuff. But if you like Christmas and you live on the West Coast or in the Plains region, well, I think those are like most of the places we'll be around. So yeah, definitely if you're there and you like that kind of thing, come out and see us.
Now can I outro us?
Yeah, you may outro.
All right, guys. As always, thanks for coming out. You guys are awesome, and we will see y'all next time.
Nah, that was too fancy. So let's back it down a little bit to where I was. There's like a bunch of junk in there, but I think that like little cell that we found is pretty cool for now. So let's stay in there and see what we find.